Oh my God.
Crackers bar.
You're hilarious.
Did you hear the dog? Even the dog was going crazy. Did you hear the dog?
No. I'm a cat person anyways.
Listen, we haven't seen each other since what, September?
Yeah.
Right? This is where we met. So just some context. I'm just to let you know, because I always catch people off guard. They come into this and it's already recording. So it's like, but it's super no hold barred. I don't know if you got to see the last episode, but it really goes in whatever direction it will go. So
True.
that's kind of the style that we're going for.
Cool.
So we met at HBO's Urban World in September.
Yeah.
And I got blown away by your short film pick, which we have to talk so much about because it's literally my favorite.
We will.
It's so good. It's so good.
Thank you.
And I've watched it a bunch of times now. It's really I love that film.
Oh wow! Thanks.
Yeah, because you sent me the link. I just rinsed it off.
I know.
I just rinsed that film. It's great.
Amazing.
And yeah, so what have you been doing in that time? It's where, other than obviously being locked in your house in recent weeks, what's been going on with you?
Oh God. Well, it's so funny because when this all started, we were at Miami Film Festival to present Pick. And so like every time we do a festival, I'm always like, let's stay till the end in case we win. Like I'm always like, we could win. I want to be there for the award ceremony. So we plan to be there for 10 full days. And of course, halfway through the festival gets canceled. So we had one screening, which was really amazing. It was sold out. It was super fun. And then the last 5 days of the festival got canceled, including like the award announcement and the award ceremony. And so we just kind of chilled in Miami. Yeah, we chilled in Miami and just enjoyed Miami. And then we came home a week later and we found out we won Best Short Film. Nice. And it was exciting, but then I was like, the one time like the festival gets canceled, we win. So it was bittersweet, but yeah, then I came home and I was like, oh, like shit's getting real. But I've just been going through different phases of what I'm doing. So I was supposed to make a film this summer. So initially I was like, oh my God, like I have like unlimited pre-production time to work on my film and guilt-free because like technically I'm not really getting paid, so I was so excited, and then I went through a wave of like, oh my God, like there's a real possibility the film is probably not going to happen this summer. So then I was really upset. And then I kind of like where I'm at now is I'm just taking it day by day, and so I'm still technically working on that film like as much as I can, like the creative research that I was doing, because it's very, we'll talk about it more later, but it's very visual. So there's a lot of visual research that I'm doing, and I have like maybe 2,000 references already, wow. Which is just insane. But I've been collecting them for a while because I was actually supposed to make this film last summer, but I was like, I don't have enough time, and now look what happened. But anyways, I've also been trying to keep myself occupied with non-film related activities, because I think this is a really good time for me, create positive habits, because like, the way that you feed your soul is to me the most important part of being a creator. Like there's only so much work and that type of thing I can actually accomplish in this time, but everything else I can do to help myself grow as a person is going to be the main things that inform my work when I can actually work on it. So I've just been trying to create some positive habits. Like one is reading in the morning. I always had like on my to-do list, like I'm going to read today, but if I don't do it in the morning, I won't do it because like I'll wake up with a to-do list in my head of all these tasks I have to do. And so having it be the first thing I do in the morning after meditation and other things has been just like a really good way to start the day, because I'm kind of reforming my values. Instead of making it like, oh my God, my work is the most important thing I have to do today, I'm starting with something that is more important, which is like my spiritual and mental well-being. So it's been really nice to just start the day with reading and relaxing and then kind of starting to do my work. So these are habits that I'm hoping like I will try to carry forward when I'm going back into like a regular mode of working, because I already worked from home and did my own stuff. So yeah, and then
what are you
I'm not
reading,
making
by the way?
bread yet.
Not making bread. Not baking yet.
I'm not making bread yet, but actually I'm in my reading chair, so I'll show you what I'm reading.
Yeah, go for it.
This is what I'm reading right now, which is an
Oh,
introduction
boundaries.
to the philosophy
So,
of Carl Jung.
Carl Jung, amazing.
So yeah. And before that, I was reading this wonderful book. I just finished it, which is The Power of Now.
Amazing book.
Have you read this book?
I have. It's in Final Gift.
Oh my God, I
Yeah, there's a
hadn't heard
little.
of it.
Yeah.
I hadn't heard of it when I saw your movie. That's why it probably didn't register.
Yeah. Well, it's meant to be subconscious. It's like one of the actors. It was like something we discussed about.
Wow.
It was his decision, and we talked about that book. We're both like, "That's a book." And his character, like, he has this idea that his character reads that book throughout the whole film, and so it's in a particular scene. It's
Yeah.
really obvious when you know the book. It's like almost like product placement.
Yeah.
That's a
Okay.
great
Well,
book.
I need to rewatch your film now because I just find these types of synchronicities so funny,
Yeah.
Like, of course it's in your movie. Like, anyways, yeah, I just read that book and I had just started reading it before all this stuff started happening. So it was a really funny book to be reading right now. um, so yeah, and I don't know, all of these books really like something that is in that book, which is really true, is that like all creation comes from a place of like inner peace and stillness. And, I think being in film, especially, that's important to me because kind of the film industry and being on set for me is associated with like immense stress and rushing and getting things done in the day and the time. And so the way I work, as you could tell by seeing Pick, is things are very constructed. So on the day I don't think I would ever make a film where I'm kind of coming up with stuff on the day because that's just not really how I work, but who knows? So things are really constructed ahead of time because on the day I just want to feel peaceful with what's already kind of been decided and just have, just be able to execute it as opposed to like working in a way where there's a lot of things being decided on the day. But yeah, the book is so interesting because if you're always stressed, then you can't really access that part of yourself that creates. Like your mind is never still. Like you're too anxious. You're too busy thinking about, things that are supposed to happen, on your next shoot day. Or if you're in pre-production, you're too busy thinking about, I don't know, everything else that's going on in your life that's stressing you out, that you can't really create from a pure place. So yeah, I on Pick went through a lot of intense
Yeah.
transformations.
Yeah, tell me about this. Yeah.
Like intense. Well, it's more of like a week-long story because it
Go
happened
for
in
it.
the span of like 2 weeks. But I'll give you like a short, long version. So, at the time, it was like 2017 when I was supposed to make it, and it was like the first time I was really analyzing. So I'll just give context since some people might not have seen the film. So the film is about a girl that wears her afro to school on picture day, and pretty much the microaggressions she has to deal with throughout the day. And then it comes time to take her personal photo, and she has to decide that she still want to wear her afro. And I don't remember why or at what point this idea popped into my head, but it did. And I thought about it for a while. I wrote the script, and at the time, I had never really talked about hair insecurities or anything like that to anybody in my whole life. And then, being a filmmaker, I reached a point where, I was making the film and people are always asking, what are you making? And so I went from never talking about an insecurity I had ever to talking about it almost every day with people, which was an interesting hurdle because a lot of the times I was explaining it to white people and bless their hearts, but they don't obviously know the history of why hair is such a heated and political topic. It's it's not just like it is kind of funny because sometimes when I'll bring it up, people with curly hair will be like, "Oh yeah, yeah, yeah," and I'll be like, "Nah, it's not the same. It's not the same as having an afro. Like, there's no history connected to you having curly hair, where people who were enslaved were literally made to hide their hair. There's so much history. Like, their hair was shaved, or they were wearing head wraps, because like black hair was like offensive, and it was a way of kind of stripping away identity of black people. So, it's not the same. Like the history of why the afro and natural hair is not accepted in today is obviously different. But anyway, so I kind of had to explain it a lot, and I would kind of feel the need to go into that deep of the history when I explained it every time, and it was really emotionally draining. I don't really do that now. I just kind of explain the film, and I'm just like, I'll send it to you. Like, I don't feel yeah, like I don't feel, because the film speaks for itself, but I think at the time I was doing that because I felt like the story wasn't important enough, and I felt like I had to justify why I was making it. So I feel like that was, subconsciously one of the reasons why I had to go into so much detail when I explained it to people, was I was still convincing myself that this was like a story worth telling. So, and then of course I would tell black people and they'd be like, "Oh my God." All I would say was like, "Girl, where's her afro?" And they'd be like, "We get it. We say no more. We know what that means." Literally. And I was like, "Yeah, we all have this story." So then it came time to the point where we shoot the film. And I, at the time, had like permed my hair. So whoever, is watching doesn't know, that's when you chemically straighten your hair. So I had chemically straightened my hair since I was 11 years old. So that was about 13 years of doing this very painful process of like chemicals being put onto my head to literally burn your hair
burns
straight.
the scalp, right?
And yeah, if you leave it on too long, which always happens, because if you wash it off too early, it doesn't work. So it literally burns your scalp. And there's a lot of really harmful, dangerous chemicals that are in it. But anyways, at that point, I'd been talking about the film. I had done so much research about the, black hair and how it was still being seen as unprofessional and not beautiful through so many examples of like mostly private schools like deeming natural hairstyles, including afros, dreadlocks, braids, to be like not allowed in schools. And people getting fired from their jobs for wearing cornrows or afros and all these things. So I was like, okay, this is obviously still a huge issue. And after doing all of this work, which I didn't even realize was like inner work, I thought I was just doing work for the film, but what I was doing was like dismantling these ideas in my own mind. So I cast my actress, who has like a huge, beautiful afro, and obviously grew up with different. Obviously, she kind of grew up in a space where her afro was. I would say like a positive part of herself. And whether that being like how she was brought up and or like the representation that she saw, things like that. Whereas I grew up with like no positive representation, and it was just to me seen as like something that was holding me back, because look at all the beautiful white models on TV that don't look like how I looked. And so I meet a young person who still has her afro, and I'm like, whoa, like I should have my afro back. Like I can't make this film if I still have this like straight hair. So I just cut off all my hair one day, and it was super intense. This is also a wig, just so people know. I have an afro. It's just like not in it's not really in a state that can be seen right now because I haven't left my house. So I haven't really, like, people don't even know doing natural hair is so much work that I'm not about to do that work in this time. So this is a wig. This is not my hair.
That's not part of the self-work process.
Yeah, I'm not about to do that work. But anyways, I have a huge, beautiful afro now. Like it's huge. Like just imagine it. It's like nice. Looks like this. And anyway, so I cut off all my hair, and I actually call this period of my life, like I call it my emancipation, because I've never felt more free in my whole life. Like it was just so freeing, because this was this thing that was representing kind of an old me and representing all of my old fears of not being accepted because I had a certain hairstyle, you know, or like looking too black, or like just so many things that were deeply ingrained into me that as a child I could never recognize why I made that decision. But looking back now and making the film and being forced literally to talk about it all the time to mostly white people, and to Black people who kind of like bounced, you know, my feelings back to me to kind of validate where I was coming from. Like it was a combination of both of those things, that were both honestly equally important to my growth, that gave me the courage to cut off all my hair. But then I was like, I cannot make this film right now. It was so much at once of feelings and pain. Like it was very freeing, but there was still so much, like, here I was a new person that I had not seen myself as I was since I was a child. So it was just a lot to take in at one time, that I was not really in the mental space to be, you know, carrying a film that to me was like a film I was making for every Black woman in the world. Like I put so much pressure on myself that this film had to be perfect for Black women. And, you know, seeing as I was going through a very tumultuous like experience of accepting my new self, I kind of just needed to take a break from the film.
Oh wow.
And weirdly enough, yeah, so I actually, we were good, we had stuff booked, like we were going to make it. And then, you know, I had a really difficult time after going through this like freeing, like amazing period. I was just like, you know what, this is not the right time. Like there's too much happening right now. I just have to work on myself again. Like, you know, there's only so much work you can do on the project. And what I had realized was I was working so much on the project, but all of these emotional, like I was going through all this, you know, reliving like negative memories and not really taking care of myself throughout the process. I was just kind of working on the film. And so this was when I realized like, okay, I'm still going to make this film, but now I have to retroactively take care of myself because I didn't really do that leading up to this point. And I needed some time away to just focus on me not connected to the film. It was almost like at this point, I was just like the girl that was making pick and not myself. Like I wasn't a person. I wasn't a, you know, my whole identity was like at that point connected to the film. And so it's interesting because this book was recommended to me by somebody who I told this experience to. And she said, it sounds like you experienced ego death and you should read this book because you experienced what he talks about. And this is also, I'm like giving you kind of like the short version, but I experienced like insane synchronicities and messages from God that were, and I was like, I don't believe in God. Like, I don't believe in anything. Like I was going through a really dark period because the world was also falling apart. Like it was like year one of Trump, and I was really like into the news and watching like so many negative stories about how Black people were being treated. And I was really like not in a good place because of that. And then I was also, you know, kind of carrying this weight of this film. And so when I cut off all my hair, that's when like this like ego death happened. And I was just like experiencing like extreme lightness of just being completely worry-free, completely like disconnected from my ego self, and just being like completely connected to, you know, the creator, the source, whatever people want to say. And I, at that point, was like in such a dark place. I was like, I don't believe in what kind of God would create this world, whatever. And then bam, I was like, oh, never mind. Like,
Nice.
and it's like, it's things that I, I could explain, but I think that we receive messages in ways that we will accept them. So I can't really explain how messages were kind of conveyed to me because it wouldn't make sense to you, because I just think that everybody receives messages in the way that they're going to best accept them. So I received them in kind of a lot of like interesting ways through nature, through things that were sometimes through people, but it was mostly through nature because I went like after I cut my hair to the woods for a week And that's kind of when all of these strange things were happening. And so I never really had a name for it until somebody recommended this book. And I was like, okay, ego death makes sense. But before that, spiritual awakening, like there was all these other things that like came into my mind as to what it was called and blah, blah, blah. But it really made sense to me because since I was like 15, like I always was trying to read. I mean, like I went to Catholic school and I studied religion and blah, 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 but I was super interested in philosophy and just different ideas. And so, you know, I've kind of gone through studying like religion, philosophy, and now like spirituality. And now, you know, I'm reading like Jung, like psychology. And I honestly do see it as the same messages being told to people in different ways. Like to me, it's all the same thing. But like this film and going through this experience was what led me to kind of my new way of living and my new set of beliefs that I had, but they weren't really that new because in many ways I kind of already believed all of these things. It just kind of got diminished by the society that I was living in, which to me was becoming like more and more hostile. So anyways, I took a break from the film. Yeah, I know. It's just like this film for me, like once all of this happened to me and I hadn't even made it yet, I was like, the film's already accomplished what it needed to accomplish for me as a human and for me as an artist. It really did. And I was like, I was really only making this film so I would cut off all my hair, experience all these things and come back to my true nature and my true self. So then by the time I made the film, like legit 5 months after that happened, I was just a person that was ready to handle, you know, the stress and the pressure of being on set and just kind of following my intuition very, very clearly of what I knew I was supposed to do to make the film. And yeah, so I think that it's kind of clear how clear like my vision was when you watch the film, and the only reason why is because all of these things happened and you know they all led me to like kind of experiencing this like truth and knowledge that I feel was inside me at all times, but then I went through this very extreme scenario of it being brought to light and like thrown into my face to the point where I couldn't deny it in any way, and gave me honestly like the confidence and belief that I was always going to be successful in what I was doing as long as I followed my intuition, which is a fear that I kind of have every time I make a film. Like, is this film going to be good? But going through this experience, I was like, I came out of it. I went into it like, should I even be making films? What am I doing? And I came out of it like, this is what I was legitimately born to do. And I recognize that but it was like everything in my life actually led to me becoming a filmmaker. So I never really saw it that way before, but then I was able to kind of look back and be like, oh yeah, like it's so, you know, interesting how so many things that I was interested in, like, for example, working with children, music, like these things were like really like major parts of like me growing up and me being, you know, a teenager, a high schooler. Like I've been to like over 100 concerts. I always was like, oh, I'm going to be a musician. I'm going to do something. You know, I loved working with kids. It just was something that I enjoyed doing. Like I love kids. I love like their innocence and their playfulness and their imaginations. And I spent so much time doing that. And I think to be a creator, like if your imagination is not being like, I don't know the word, but like, you know, we kind of like we've become adults and we're not really encouraged to be creative in the same way. So I was like spending so much time playing dodgeball and like making arts and crafts. And, you know, on the other side, like listening to so much music and doing all these things. And I, you know, maybe would have thought, oh, I'm going to be a musician or, oh, I'm going to be a teacher. But now it's like I'm a storyteller and I'm telling stories, which is exactly what all these musicians which is what I loved so much about music was the stories. And I'm leading a team of people in making work that for me is specifically for children. Like I want the films I make to have an impact on youth, because I feel I'm making films that I wish I saw as a child. So it's interesting because it's like I'm kind of feeding the parts of myself that were not fed as a child, and it's like my inner child is being healed in the process.
It's interesting you
Yeah,
say that
that
about
was a
music, is because it's a very quiet film. Pick is it's a really quiet film, ironically. And
yeah.
I remember we spoke. You spoke to me about why, but it'd be interesting for you to explain it, because obviously it's apparent even in just the sentiments you just expressed that music's very important to you,
Yeah.
and you kind of had to make some like tough decisions in regards to like how much music there would or wouldn't be in the film, and it'd be
Yeah.
interesting to just get your thoughts on that again.
Yeah. Yeah, so there is no music in Pick. And it's funny because I actually I saw some movies with some really good soundtracks when I was like in high school, and I was like, oh my God, like I can't wait to like pick music for my movies and blah, blah, blah. And that was like one of the main things I was excited to do, which is whatever. Probably when I do a feature that'll happen. But this film, I think that every decision you make for the film should be motivated by how you're trying to make the audience feel. And so every single decision that was made for Pick was motivated by that. So, step one is like, what is the film about? The film is about being made to feel like the other, and the main character feels uncomfortable. And she, when I'm in these situations where people are like reaching out to touch my hair, like, saying really intrusive, annoying comments, those moments feel like they last a fucking eternity. Okay. And they're just awkward and uncomfortable. So what I wanted to do with the film was make people feel uncomfortable. I wanted them to feel how uncomfortable that the lead feels. And people do not like silence. Okay. That's why meditation is something that a lot of people don't do, is because people don't like to be alone with their thoughts. People don't like to be confronted with silence and stillness, because that's when, your shadows and your demons come out. And so the film is super quiet because I just wanted people to only be paying attention to what was happening. And I think music is a really good tool. As a filmmaker, I watch movies and, something sad will happen and then a really sad song will come on and I might cry, but I'll be like, they put that song in to make me cry. I know. Because I know the tools and
Yeah.
use the tools, sure. But
Yeah.
sometimes I feel like there is a certain skill of achieving a certain reaction from people without kind of telling them how they're supposed to feel, because music can do that sometimes, and especially music with words. Like there's so many times you'll watch a movie and they'll they have that structure where there's a montage, let's say there's like a breakup and then you see both people in their respective homes and there's a montage of like exactly how they feel through the words of the song. And so that's useful and that's really great. But I just didn't want to tell anybody how to feel. I wanted them to feel like the whole point. In also one of the creative choices I made, which was not showing the character's face until the end, was that I wanted them to figure out how she felt. And for me, if I had put in sad music, then they're like, oh, she's sad. And the whole ambiguity that comes with the fact that people honestly say these microaggressions and don't know it's rude. They don't know it makes you feel uncomfortable. They don't know it's ignorant. And I wanted people that maybe do these things to kind of be watching and be like, oh yeah, I maybe said that the other day, and not realize, that it's bad until the end, and kind of go on this journey with the character and be like, oh, she has to deal with this one comment. And then the next thing happens, oh, she has to deal with another comment. And music, if I put music in, it really would have told the audience how I wanted them to feel and how the character was feeling. And, I just didn't want to do that. I really wanted to present it as real life. Like the film is very constructed, obviously, in the way that it's shot, but it's not over dramatic. It's not over dramatic in any way. Nobody breaks down and cries. Like nobody, there's no yelling. It's literally just simple, quiet conversations that happen because that is real life. And I wanted people to be confronted with real life and be forced to feel how the character feels. And people have told me that they've cried watching the movie and these really intense emotions. And I guess I kind of was always surprised when people came to me with that, because I was like, I don't think I put anything in there that would have like created such a strong reaction. But I mean, I think then I'm kind of selling myself short, because like obviously I did. Like I did my
well,
job.
I think you do a really good job of building empathy in that film. I think you have a piece of merchandise, I think, that you guys had for the film. I remember seeing in a photo. It's like pick, which is a really nice pun. Pick empathy, not apathy. I think it was like, I think I saw it in a bag or something. And I think the film does a really good job of that, of like actually leading the viewer into their own sense of empathy, which is, it's a hard thing to pull off too, like you say, without actually being distracting and forceful. So that's totally. Really interesting. That's really interesting. And you've had an incredible reception to the film. Like you guys got, so you guys got nominated for the Canadian Screen Awards. Like, how was that? How did that go down? Like, how did that feel? Like, what's that day look like? You wake up and you're like, how does that happen? How did you find out?
That was super exciting, because those are like the Canadian Oscars.
Yeah.
So for me, I had gone last year to the Screen Awards for the first time, because I got this mentorship, and it was one of the perks of the mentorship was to go to the awards. And it was one of the most magical nights I've experienced in Canadian film, because Canadian film is really underrated. And in Canada too, it's very like, so many people in Canada don't watch Canadian films, unfortunately, and don't even know the talent that we have here. And so when I was at this beautiful magical night, it was just a night where we weren't underrated. Like, we were like, the Canadian industry was, everybody there is in the industry or a lover of the industry. And it was just a beautiful celebration of Canadian media. And so when we submitted it, it was we submitted it, I don't know, like October. And by the time it was like early March when they were announcing it, like Hair Love had won. You've heard of Hair Love, no?
Yeah. It was short film from the Oscars, no?
Yeah. So it's an animated short film about a dad like learning to do his daughter's hair, and like a black father. And it had won Best Animated Short. And I was like, oh my God, like, this is so cool. This is so amazing. And so when we got nominated, it was super excited, because I live with my sister, who's also one of the producers of the film, Vanessa Harris. And she just like I had put in my calendar, like, wake up early this day, you know, it's going to be announced, but I didn't. I was just like, wow. And my sister just came down and she's like, we got nominated.
Is that how she said it? She was like, we got nominated.
Yeah. Cause she didn't want to like wake me up. And I was like, oh my God. So then I like woke up, and then you get like everybody tagging you in Instagram stories, which is just so cool. Cause I just got Instagram too. And I was like, oh my God, this is so exciting. Like, everybody's so excited for us. And it was just really cool, because we're kind of, like I said, the film accomplished for me what it was going to accomplish, which is like an intense spiritual growth as an artist, and, you know, changed my whole way of being in the world. But like, the fact that people are continuing to like it and recognize it in different ways is really special. Like for me, honestly, like, people coming up to me after the screening, like you, for example, and just saying that they liked the film is equally as like a good enough of recognition for me as an award. Because what is an award? It's just people in a room voting for your film or liking your film. And so I've kind of had to really, in my mind, like, not overvalue winning things, because like,
you've won so many things now that it's old.
No, no, honestly, because I'm a competitive person.
Yeah.
So sometimes I do get too caught up in like, I should have won this, I should have won that. So I've kind of had to dismantle the idea in my mind and remember that I feel the same way when a person comes up to me and just tells me they like the film. So why am I valuing kind of one type of recognition more than the other? Because what the film is trying to do is simply just show an experience that people have, and you know, specifically for Black women, like, make this just kind of share what we go through so people can learn from it. And obviously people outside of the community of Black women that like the film for other reasons, whether it's like the artistic reasons or they relate to the fact of just being an outsider and being another, you know. But yeah, like, people winning an award is cool, but what is cool is, like, you know, when you like when you came out to me and kind of had, like, you were like referencing scenes and referencing shots, like, that is the type of recognition that you don't get usually ever, because unless somebody does a review of your film, that kind of gets, I feel like my film always gets recognized for the importance of the subject matter, which I think is really amazing. Like, we get in the news and of course we're talking about the subject matter, and that's one piece of the film, but there's not a lot of times that I get to talk about the actual creative choices that I make. Even in Q&As, a lot of people want to talk about the subject matter, and I love to talk about the subject matter, but I also love to talk about the decisions that I made to make the audience feel a certain way, which you don't usually get to talk about. So it's exciting when, you know, when we met and you came up to me with like shot references and like all these things, and I was like, oh my gosh, like, somebody like really like took in the decisions that I made to make people feel how I wanted them to feel. So I've just kind of like, there's a lot of ways that, you know, feed my soul of, you know, people saying they liked it, you know, somebody reaching out to want to do an interview, winning an award, whatever, all of these things. And I've kind of just realized that they're all equally valuable to me because they make me feel the same way. And that's simply just that I made a good film. Like, you know, and
crazy. Of course, the film has like like huge cultural pros, like really important short film. But what for me made me like, I love this film is it was the filmmaking. Like, you know, it was like, the story's great, of course, and it's handled with such elegance, and but it was the filmmaking that made me go like, okay, I don't care what this filmmaker does, I'm gonna see it again. I need to see the next thing you do. Like, I don't care if you go like super art house in your next film and it has nothing to do with cultural like impact. I'm still gonna watch it because I'm gonna be like, how is she gonna shoot that? Like, what decision is she gonna make with music or lack of? Because that's what kind of excites me about film is the filmmaker. It's like, you know, it's like football, right? I'm not a big football guy, but I get why, you know, how people feel about their teams. It's like they've got their teams, but then they've got their players that they love too, right? It's like, you want your team to win, but you love like Ronaldo because he's just going to finesse it. You know, there's a way that he approaches the sport that just makes him like amazing at what he does. And just watching, even if you're watching him fail, it's still like amazing because it's like at any moment he might do something like unbelievable. And so obviously that's the first film of yours I saw. It was like an amazing introduction to you as a filmmaker because of the way you make films. It's like it's a very like confident style of filmmaking you have, which is like very precise and I wouldn't say controlled. Like, it is very controlled, but that isn't the I think I'd say maybe deliberate. You know, like every detail feels deliberate, and I don't often see that. And it's something I'm really thirsty for as a fan of film, and I can be quite. I won't say critical. I just kind of accept people make films the way they want to make them. But it's something that I don't understand why more filmmakers aren't like really invested in. You have all this, you can control anything that I'm seeing. And Pick is one of those films where it's like every single, like there's the shot where they're throwing like paper balls at her hair. And I remember seeing the cut to the next shot on the floor. And I just remember thinking, I wonder how many times she shot the floor, just them dropping on the floor, or how specific she was about like positioning them more, because it's, you get the sense that everything just falls in place so nicely. You know, there isn't like an offbeat in the entire film, and maybe you don't appreciate that if you don't make films, but it's incredibly hard to do, like every single ticking moment of the film to be that consistent with the beats, and from color to cinematography to even just performance style. You know, there's a style of performance in that film, like you say. You know, we don't see the character's face, and so to have that kind of confidence to be able to use your actors in a way where you can still, but you can still the whole film does a job of making us empathize with the character, but even the characters before, she's great in that film, right? She's amazing in that film, and we never see her face. And it's like, how do you one, you know, as an actor, how do you achieve that? And then two, as a director, how do you approach that? How do you go, okay, how am I gonna guide my actor whilst my actor knows their face isn't going to be seen, which is like kind of one of their, you know, their main tools. And so I just by the time that film was finished, I was like, how this woman approaches filmmaking, I'm interested. You know, I'm super interested, and I'm really curious. Like, so I don't know how much you can or can't say. This next piece you were going to do, how much can you?
Oh yeah, I'll give you the whole spiel.
Yeah.
But I do want to just say, like, honestly, like, the actress was just really great. It was her first film, and it's so weird because, yeah, I know, it's insane, but I know that my style has come from my, I don't want to say my production design background, because I did production design at the same time as directing. So it's not like I was a production designer and then I became a director. I went to film school and I was a director, but at the same time, I also did production design for other people's films. And when I graduated film school, I did production design for other people's films. And I have, every once in a while, will do a production design gig. And so I also made a film, which you should watch, which is entirely rooms. And it's a story.
I feel like I remember you telling me about this. Oh, there was a weird synchronicity about this, but that will come to that another time. Yeah, carry on.
Yeah. But I was just going to say, like, I created that film because I was like, wow, space can really tell a story. And the colors that you put in a space and all the details and items that you put in a space can tell a story. So for me, I tend to have, when I'm thinking of things, I, as a designer, want to control the space, because to me, everything is possible with production design. And I know that because I've been the person whose its job to create a space out of nothing. So, you know, I've just worked on films where it's like, here's an empty room, turn it into XYZ. And, you know, I can choose everything. I could choose the colors and whatever. And I will go into a space and be like, we're changing everything about this. And I know it's possible. Like, if you see the before pictures of the classroom, it's completely different. Like, it's completely different. But because I've done design, I can go into the space and I can completely reimagine it, how I think it will best serve the film. So, for example, I made a lot of very deliberate decisions about what the colors were going to be, and the classroom and the school. I wanted it to feel like institution feeling and like more threatening and just cold. And, you know, so the classroom is blue. And then, you know, there's just little details where every time somebody watches it, I want them to notice, like, if they happen to look up, all of a sudden you see great leaders and it's just all white guys in the classroom, you know. And the scene when she's like in the foyer, she's standing in front of like the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, which is like I don't know what the Americans have, like the Declaration of, it's just our thing. Like, you know, what is that thing that they say at the beginning of school? Anyways, it's our thing. Nobody says it, but it's just our like thing that represents Canada's freedoms and whatever. And she's standing in front of that in between two flags. And those were all created and brought to the scene brought to the set because I wanted it to feel like an institution. And what better way of making it feel that way than having her stand right in between like two flags. And then right on this bulletin board, it says, "Our home on Native land." And that's actually like a quote from the Canadian national anthem, which is actually "Our home and Native land." And I changed it to "on" because I just wanted to be like, you know, look at how kind of racist we are, and remember that we stole this land. So there's just so many like details. Yeah, there's like a lot of crazy details that as a designer, I'm like, this space is going to have a message. And even if you don't notice it, you'll know how you feel because of the colors. You know, every threatening person in the film is wearing red. Every complacent person is wearing blue, and every positive person is wearing yellow. And she's the only person wearing white. And, you know, these are just decisions that you maybe won't notice, but you know how you feel. And not everybody that's not a filmmaker can see that. But even like the paper ball scene, I didn't want it to be over dramatic. So that's why there's no ridiculous shot of the boys that were throwing the balls in her hair. Like, just like a cliche shot of like them laughing or something. Like I didn't want to have that because I felt that would be too forced too. I just wanted people to like, she doesn't really see them doing it. So I just wanted them to kind of just see what's happening, like this observational feeling of like, let's say you were sitting behind her and you saw this happen and you don't see, the super dramatic thing of like the boys like laughing or whatever. I also just like, I'm just kind of tired of some types of like tropes and things. And I just wanted the film to be like different, like different. And yeah. But it's interesting because I have this like very painterly approach, which is the film is all static. It's all static camera, and everything in the frame has been created deliberately through production design and like my collaborations with my production designer, and every color has been deliberately decided. And so I think that's kind of what informed Pick, is that I always want to control what's in the frame, because if anybody looks to the far corner here, they're going to see a detail that is important and contributes to the story. So I'm not the director that's going to show up on the day and be like, oh, actually, we're going to shoot the other side of the room that we haven't planned for, because I like that everything in the frame is contributing to the feelings, which means that there's something that we've come up with that is going to be in the background that's going to be interesting, or the colors are important. Anyways, so my next film is I decided I was going to do a trilogy of shorts.
Yeah, I remember you saying.
And yes, because once I finished Pick, which is not, the happiest of films, I really realized like I wasn't done talking about hair, because at this point I actually started working at the hair store as just a job, literally as just a job. When I
must.
Yeah, I was like, I'm doing research undercover, but I just needed a job because I had no money. And I had just cut off all my hair, and I needed to go to the hair store for like the first time to buy new hair products. And there was literally like a hiring sign, and I just got the job like the next week. So this is what I'm saying, like synchronicities, I just call them that, but I'm like, thank you for the very subtle guidance into what I was supposed to do next. So in between like me taking a break from Pick, I just worked at the hair store pretty much full time to kind of like, I don't know, well, one, make money. And it was like kind of nice to just be surrounded by Black women all the time, because I was coming from a very isolated, dark place, and I cut off all my hair. And then I was in a place where Black women come in with all different types of hair all the time. And it really was the perfect place for me to be. I was always learning about my hair from the customers. I was supposed to be teaching them, but I was like, anyways, eventually now I do know a lot about hair, but I just got the job because I was convincing at the time. And yeah, so this next film is inspired by my time working at the hair store. And yeah, that's where I was going with that. And it's just funny because this film is more about, I would say, the beauty industry at large. And it's called On a Sunday at 11. And it's following a young Black girl as she
fucking cool. I'm sorry to cut you off. Even the name.
Thank you. I love a poetic title, honestly.
Yeah, it's great. Carry
yeah, like no, this is a conversation. I'm going on, but feel free to cut in at any time.
This is great. This is great name.
Thank you. Yeah, and it's actually interesting because I've considered changing it, because the room film I made is called Maybe If It Were a Nice Room, and people always mess up the title, but I just don't care. I'm just like, whatever. I like it. Anyways, On a Sunday at 11. And it's following this young ballerina's Sunday, and kind of her Sunday rituals. And basically it starts with the day before when her mom's braiding her hair, and then it goes into the hair store. And what I love about the hair store is it's the only place where it's always all Black women. I mean, obviously other people come into the store and they're all owned by pretty much Korean people, which is a whole nother story, but it's a community of Black women. And that's what I love about the hair store so much, kind of what I just explained. It was a time where I cut off all my hair and I felt seen and loved, and accept it immediately, whatever hair I have when I'm there. But the bad thing about the hair store is it's also a reflection of the beauty industry. And some of the images that you see in the hair store are like the hair straightening product, like the relaxer product. And, you know, there's a whole aisle for bleaching cream, a whole aisle. And how many times we also have makeup there. How many times I had to help a Black woman find her shade, and how many times I would recommend her actual shade, which was a darker shade, and she would choose the lighter shades that didn't actually match her skin because obviously she wanted to look lighter. So the hair store, or the beauty supply store, whatever you want to call it, is an interesting separation of the community of Black women and the celebration of our hair. And, you know, I accept like all types of hair, like our natural hair, the wigs that we have, like, you know, Black hair comes in many shapes and forms, and like, you know, whatever. But then you have this other side of the messaging of the store, which is like, and buy these products to make yourself look more white, which is completely what the beauty industry has sold us since the beginning of time. So that was a long way of me just saying that she goes to the store and she feels the community of the store, but she also sees the negative messages that are in the store. Mm-hmm. And then she goes to ballet class, and she's the only Black girl in the class, and she has braided hair. She does not look like the typical ballerina, which is like, you know, a thin white girl with straight hair all properly in a bun. She's very different. And the film is about how the sisterhood of Black women transcends the physical world. And it's how this community that she has of Black women in her life are with her, even when they're not physically with her. Mm-hmm. And so basically what happens is she's able to recall this community in this difficult time, and it helps her get through this moment and just kind of stand proudly as herself, as somebody who looks different in this class. And which is pretty much the opposite of Pick. But it's, for me, I'm making a progression. The films are like a progression of my own journey. So I wrote Pick at a time where that was reflecting myself at 11 and years old, which is also interesting because the film is on a Sunday at 11 and 11 a.m. mass. But it's all connected. It's all connected. Yeah. And so that was me writing from my 11-year-old perspective. And now I'm writing from my 24-year-old perspective of when I'm not 24 anymore, but that was when I cut off all my hair. And so now I'm writing the film of the girl who celebrates being different. And it's interesting because I did take ballet, but the film, and I was the only Black girl, but the film is more about me being the only Black person or woman or whatever in so many rooms of filmmaking that I'm in. And it's about how I have actually a community of Black women in film. And I've never had that before, that when I am actually in those spaces, I know after, if I want to laugh about something or need somebody to relate to, I know I have that community. And that's something I didn't have as a child. Like, I didn't have a lot of Black people around me. You know, I didn't have this community to go to. And, you know, the film is really about my experience being in film, but it's just a beautiful celebration of, like, you know, me being different and looking the way that I do and being Black and biracial and a million of other labels is truly my greatest strength, because it fuels my, it makes me very passionate about what I want to make, because I know I'm making it for people who are kind of like starving for like representation, because I'm making it for me. And it's also given me like a wealth of experiences to pull from, to tell these stories. And the cool thing about the film is that there's basically zero dialogue. I was actually going to make it a silent film. I was going to make it a silent film, but I put in a few pieces of dialogue that are important, but there's essentially no dialogue. It's all visual. And there's two distinct worlds of the film, and one world is fantasy and the other world is hyper reality. And so the whole film, I'm trying to make the film where the audience is, it's not like a POV film or anything, but the audience is experiencing it from her perspective. So when she feels alone, the lighting is going to reflect that. So in the end of Pick, you might remember there's like a lighting gag of like it's practical lighting where the lights turn off.
Mhm.
Yes. And so that is something that I'm going to be doing a lot in this film, where she's feeling isolated. There's going to be practical lighting gags that happen. There's going to be VFX in this one. There's going to be the fantasy sequences are all going to be on film, and the
Nice.
reality kind of sequences are going to be digital. And I'm just kind of doing like, this is like a culmination of kind of all of my creative, like my first film was on film. I always loved it. And this film, I'm really kind of taking all of the creative ideas that I've tested out in other places and throwing them all now into this film. And it's going to be interesting though, because it's going to be one of the first times ever that I've done a film with camera movement, which seems so
Oh,
normal.
she's moving.
It seems so normal to most filmmakers, but it's actually terrifying for me. Like, I don't even know how to think in that way. But there's dance. There's going to be a dance sequence in it. So I want to have movement, but it's going to be something where I'm really going to be kind of working with my DP to figure out how one even plans that, because I'm so used to just planning, like, here's the frame, people are going to walk in and out of it, and it's going to be a fun new challenge to incorporate camera movement into the film. And it's also going to be my first film where I'm going to be shooting outside. So and it's interesting because you said earlier, like, I don't want to say control, I want to say deliberate, but for me, it is control. I still kind of have the fear. I can't pretend I've just gotten rid of it. A fear of not being able to control the circumstances. And so just the idea of a camera being moved is already a piece that I can't control ahead of time. That, like, these are things I realized later. Like, why did I never move the camera? Why did I never shoot anything outside? And it's because of those things, like, shooting outside, I can't control the weather. I can't control what the plants look like that day. So this is going to be a film where I'm finally in the place to let go of control and trust that it'll work out, and we'll figure out, trust that I've chosen the right team members to help me execute the vision, and just let go of the things that I can't control. And, I think it's going to be a really fun, cool challenge for me, this film, because I'm trying new things, but I'm also still very much staying true to my style. And yeah, like, I've also never done VFX. Like, these are just things I've kind of always wanted to try. And the VFX is not a huge part of the film, but it's still there. So it's, I'm not sure when the film's going to happen, because it was supposed to happen this summer, but the money is in the bank, and I'm excited to make it. And I know, like, I have no, like, Pick was postponed 3 times. So this film is about to kind of be postponed twice. So
it's part of your style.
It's a part of my process. Yeah. Like, I'm just like, I just also have never regretted having more time. So I will never, obviously I've made it clear I believe in God. I believe in divine timing. I believe in divine intervention, because it's happened to me. I have no choice but to believe it, because there's overwhelming proof in my life that I'm being guided. But because of that, when things get postponed, I'm just like, whatever, like, it'll happen at the right time it's supposed to happen. And when I look at, I just kind of started redoing my kind of creative document, and I look at what I had come up with last year, because I was supposed to make this last year, and I just kind of deleted all of it, because now, not all of it, the bones of the film are the same, but some of the costume ideas I had, and some of the, like, which is a big thing for this film because it's very fantastical. So the costumes, because kind of like the people in her fantasies are also the people in her real life, and the costumes are a really important story piece to connect that, and the hair that they have is really important for that. But I was kind of looking at the ideas I had, and they were very, I would just say, a little bit basic. But now it's been a year, and I have a year of new images that I've absorbed, and I kind of have more of a clearer direction of what is informing the creative choices, instead of it just kind of being like a cool like, for example, there's like a paradise type of location. I was like, oh, it's just a paradise. But now I'm kind of connecting it to, I don't want to go into too much detail, but I'm giving it some more historical context so my decisions are more motivated.
Nice.
Like kind of what I was saying, like everything should be motivated by something. So now I've connected the location to, I want it to feel like kind of a traditionally white space that's existed in history, but I'm going to be inserting us into it. So it's kind of helping me then inform the costumes. Like, I don't want it to be like, I love Beyonce. And I think I was really like informed by, oh my God, I want to see her. She's going to have like a crown and all these things that I had absorbed from Beyonce's Lemonade. And then I was like, you know what? If my only reference for the costumes or my ideas are Beyonce's Lemonade, then I'm not digging deep enough, because she obviously had references that she was going for this like queen-like imagery of this paradise. And I'm like, my images have to come from a more pure place, because then what makes my thing different than what she's doing? You know, like I had to figure out for me, what am I dismantling? Like ballet is representing European place and European traditions. And so I kind of had to like, I need to do more research about that to inform what this space is going to look like, or else I'm just kind of shooting a paradise location with a bunch of nice flowers, and you're looking at it and you're like, oh, it's beautiful. But, you know, as I've kind of explained, I want everything to have meaning, that when these films get taught about in school, when they're like, and her early work, you know, I want them to analyze and be like, why did she choose this type of paradise looking location? Like, you know, so if I would have made the film last year, I wouldn't have thought of all those things at that time. It was kind of just growing, and all of my ideas have really grown over time. So whenever this film happens and wherever, I know it'll be the right time. And my ideas will just become stronger, and the meanings behind them will just grow. So
Amazing. There's something I really want to come back to, because you said something that's really funny. This was the reason I was laughing. You were saying, I've never shot outside because I actually I like the control. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Jean-Pierre Jeunet's Amélie.
Oh my God.
2000, I think it's 2001.
I literally watched it 2 days ago.
Oh, okay, amazing. There's more synchronicity for you. Oh,
for the first
no
time,
way!
I watched it 2 days ago.
Oh,
no
wow.
lie.
Well, there's more synchronicity for you. And this is going to get pretty weird for you now, because you like your synchronicity. It's going to get pretty weird. So there's an amazing scene in that film outside, and it's like really foggy, right? He's got this really interesting aesthetic where it's like all foggy, and it's like, why, right? Jean-Pierre Jeunet despises shooting outside, so most of that film is shot on set. It's like the production design is amazing. It looks like it's all
it's very contrived in a good way.
Yeah, it looks like I thought that film was all shot on like in predominantly locations, like because it looked like French interiors, but it's all sets, the whole film, right? Or a large portion.
Even like the train stations and stuff?
Train stations, no, actual train stations.
Okay, because that's what I thought about when I was watching it, because it still felt very controlled, but I was like, there's no way they built this.
I'm pretty sure the train station is the train station.
Okay,
okay. But here's what is interesting is he dislikes shooting outside so much because he doesn't have control. And the reason that scene has this like foggy aesthetic is it started raining. And he didn't want it to be raining in the film, and so him and the DP spoke. He's like, "What can we do?" And they were like, "Okay, let's just blast the street with fog to like kind of disguise the rain." And he doesn't like the scene. It's really strange. I'm like, that's like kind of like in terms of imagery, that's like quite a powerful scene. But I find it really funny that it's cool that you watched it only 2 days ago. That you're in that same headspace where you're like, I don't want to shoot outside, because it's like that now. It's like I am at the mercy of like Mother Nature, and it's like it could rain or something could happen that's out of my control. It's interesting you say that about camera movement as well. That's interesting. It's weird because I actually like I've told you how much I love movement in films, and for that reason though, like as in like I feel like I can control a little bit more, if that makes sense, because it's like it almost feels like, so I'm really interested to see what you do with movement, even if it's just a little bit of movement, because it's like it's one of the reasons I don't particularly like handheld anymore. Like I use handheld like very deliberately, but I don't like if I did a whole film that was handheld, it would be like a stylistic choice, which it is most of the time, but also it's just like kind of like, okay, we're gonna have to be handheld because it's the feeling. But the only thing I don't like so much about handheld is I want the movement to also be like super specific. And that
Yeah.
kind of puts a certain pressure on the DP for handheld. Where it's like, oh, dude, you kind of went like this a little bit. It's like, well, it's handheld. I'm like, yeah, I know, but I don't want it to have that kind of freedom necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
And so that kind of led me to, I always shoot on dollies. Like 90% of my films are shot on dollies because, I mean, I can stay static if I want, but also I can move. And I always feel like if you are a bit of a control freak, which not saying you are, but I certainly am. It winds up being interesting to see. Nice. It winds up being interesting to see how much you can, because now it's like you can't afford to not be very specific because everything could fall out of place. Like the shot might start really nicely, but you move around, and now if you're not really tight with the blocking, then the blocking can kind of fuck up the tone of the scene or the feeling of the scene, or the, you know, you're trying to get from point A to point B before hitting point C, and point B could fall apart, and so getting to point C doesn't work in the same way. This is only unless if you're doing like long takes, but it's interesting. My point being is, like, I think it's going to be really interesting to see someone with your level of control start moving, because it's naturally a part of your approach to maintain the control, and maybe like you develop away from that, then maybe there's more of a marriage of like, okay, acceptance and like a dance between like what you can control and what you can't. But I'm pretty sure that you're just going to end up having now this like level of freedom to your control that's going to be quite interesting, because I actually think the filmmakers that I think use movement the best are the filmmakers like you, where they're very, very specific. And like the handheld stuff, that's the only reason I'm not too into the handheld stuff, is because I can't see the decisions. You know, I don't know what was decisions. I don't know what was just feeding. I don't know what was just like DP, like flexing out. If you've seen a filmmaker's work before and you can tell that they're quite meticulous with details, when they do use handheld, you can tell there's a different tone to how they use handheld. You know, it's like, it still feels really deliberate. And that, so I actually think, I mean, you'll boss it because it's you, but I'm really interested to see how you handle movement in especially if it's related to like it sounds like a dance sequence or something. That's going to be, I'm super interested in that.
It's so scary. Yeah.
What makes you afraid of it?
Honestly,
like, what freaks you out the most?
You know what?
You
I think it's that it's not going to cut.
Okay.
Like, because I think for me, it's so easy, obviously, like, so for Pick, we planned all the shots very carefully because we were not showing her face. So I would obviously plan pretty carefully anyways, but that was something we really had to plan because, or every scene would have been the same. Every scene we would have shot it exactly the same. So we did a tech scout, we did photo storyboards, like, we really, you know, tried to figure out how we were going to shoot each scene. So it wasn't just, oh, now we're behind her again. And like, for me, it's very, and I guess this is another bringing back to the power of now, you know, you kind of have to not think so far ahead. Like, and so when I was coming up with, like, you know, this idea of we were going to shoot from the back of her head, I didn't think about, oh my God, how are we going to do it? And how is it going to work out? I just thought, we're going to not show her face because I want the audience to figure out how she's feeling. And I didn't try to live in the end. I just was like, this is the right decision for the film. And everything else kind of just came to be after. Like, all these other creative ideas that were informed by my team, that were informed by research and all this stuff. And so for me, with like, I agree with everything you're saying about handheld. Like, I always am critical about why any type of decision is made. So for example, a really obvious one is like when something's in black and white, if I cannot figure out why you made such a strong decision to have your whole film be in black and white and you just did it because you thought it would make it look better, I'm distracted the whole film. And I kind of feel that way I don't feel that way as much about handheld, but when you make such a deliberate, I think it's weird that people, for example, if you shoot film, people look at that as like so deliberate or whatever, but you should kind of think about why you're shooting anamorphic, why you're shooting handheld. And if that doesn't have to do with what you're trying to make the audience feel and you just shot anamorphic because you thought it looked cool, then it just looks cool and it doesn't really have a meaning behind it. So Pick is 4:3. It's 4:3 because I wanted people to feel boxed in with her, and like, you know, because they were kind of putting her in a box with the way that people were judging her. But then I also, it's about photo, you know, like it's a portrait of her and her day, and the whole thing is about a portrait. So 4:3 has meaning, you know, like, whereas if you're going to aspect ratio, how you're shooting it, like movements, I just think that there should be some sort of thing. And sometimes the style comes before the meaning. Sometimes I'll just decide, like, I don't know, usually with colors that'll happen. I'll be like, everything's going to be red, and red could mean anger and it could mean love. And so I might decide, okay, I want all the threatening characters in the film to wear red, and that is going to represent anger. But I might have made the decision that red happens first, and then I came up with, okay, it's because of this. So I think
Very true.
sometimes some things happen, you know, you kind of come up with the meaning after. And I just think sometimes, like, I do think everything that you create is already within you. So, you know, whatever order it comes out, it's, you know, it doesn't really matter. But yeah, I find handheld to be distracting sometimes. Also, if I can't figure out why necessarily. But I just think this is going to be a film where I just am going to trust the experts that I've brought on the team to help me, because I definitely, we're going to do some cool camera movement stuff. And it's weird because I watch films with really deliberate and smart camera movement, and I'm like, this is adding so much. Like, this is so cool. But my brain just doesn't think that way always. So I really would like to just collaborate a lot with my DP on this. And it'll be cool because I think one of the reasons why I also avoided camera movement was because then I have to do 360 production design of a space. And so I just wouldn't really plan something where I would have to do that. But a lot of this is maybe going to be outside. So it's just like, there's certain things that were limiting my desire to do camera movement, which is like, oh, then I have to 360 deck out this room, or I have to do this, that, or whatever. And now I'm kind of just like letting go of those fears and limitations and just being like, camera movement could be really cool for this film. It's definitely going to like add something. It'll challenge me to think in a different way. And I'm not going to think about the edit. I'm going to rely on the fact that I'm trusting my team and myself. Cause it's like, obviously I've made films, like I know what I'm doing, but I think I get scared of like the camera's moving and then how is it going to cut? But it's like, why should I be scared of that now? You know,
Yeah,
it's been done. It's not like people haven't made dance films before. So yeah.
It's interesting. You said something earlier that I resonated with, where you're saying you wouldn't like to, you know, show up on set and not know what was going on. Because I used to be kind of similar to that. I'm like really particular. I don't storyboard just because I've got this weird. So something that's happened to me through experience is I've probably my favorite scenes for me anyway. You know, when you have things that like no one else realizes anything about that scene, but for you, you're like, this, you don't realize that I probably pulled it out the bag on that day the most. All of those scenes in my work have come from this fine balance of like mass preparation and then being like almost having a childlike curiosity or like a childlike openness to circumstance, because something has happened and I've been forced to pivot away from the plan, or the plan's fallen apart. And the actual resolve wound up being way better. And it happened in the last film I made. We had this scene in the greenhouse, and where we hadn't seen the location. We'd seen pictures, but we struggled so hard to get this location because greenhouses are super expensive, and we had like really limited budget by this point. And we got this location really last minute. And so we got it, and it was like, it was amazing. Producers pulled it out the bag. It was an unbelievable location. But the place that we thought we were going to shoot, the greenhouse we thought we had, was a really small greenhouse, and I'd seen pictures of it, and I was like, it's not what and the pressure was on me because it was kind of my idea. It was, that scene was meant to be shot in like a restaurant, and I came trying to be like over the top and be like, no, we should do it in the greenhouse. And we kind of broke down why we were only going to have this character for one scene. And so I needed as much as I could in terms of production design to tell her story, from like what she did for a living. And she had a really complicated like backstory that I want to go into. Are
we talking about Final Gift?
Yeah. So there's a scene in this
I remember the
greenhouse,
scene. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so it was really important for me to be able to create the world and the backstory for this character that no one was going to get to kind of understand. that it was a greenhouse. It was the only way I could know who she was fully. But the greenhouse that we had, it was like, oh, this isn't what I want it to be. But we got a greenhouse, and it's hard enough to get greenhouses, so let's just go. So we went down there, and we saw the greenhouse, and we're walking through. You know, I don't know if you, like, again, if you plan things out, you're not going to have this feeling. But I walked in there, and I was like, I'd seen the pictures, and I'd really thought about what I was going to do, and I was like, I spoke about it with the DP, and but there was a sense of like, we will have to figure this out when we get there, because it's not apparently obvious to me what we can do. We can maybe go here, and you put something together loosely, but it's like, we'll need to really fill the space to know if that's going to work or not. We got in there and it was tiny, like, and I got in there and I saw a scene, yeah, sure, but something was off. And then one of the producers comes around and she's like, there's a really big greenhouse like across the park. I'm going to see if we're here. Let's just see if we can get that. And I was like, okay, yeah, sure. Like, so I'm trying to work out the scene, and then we get like the okay to like, we can go in there. It's like, no problem. We can, like, if we want to shoot in there, we can. We don't have to. We can shoot in this one. We can shoot where we want. I'm like, okay, cool. So I'm not like panicking, but I'm still like, I don't have a scene. And then we get into this greenhouse, and it's huge, exactly what I wanted, like perfect. But we've never been here before, right?
Yeah.
And it's weird. So people are like, okay, what are we gonna do? And it's like, okay. And I asked my first. I was like, just give us 45 minutes, right? And we'll figure it out. We'll roll in 45 minutes. And it's like you say, me and the DP, we just locked ourselves in the greenhouse. Like, no one came in. And we just walked out the entire scene. And we just pieced it all together then and then. And it was beautiful because her name's Samira Oberberg. She's an amazing German cinematographer. And we are so alike in this way that there's this childlike optimism about just being creative in general, that we were like, okay, cool, like, yeah, we don't know what we're gonna do, what are we gonna do, right? And that scene is probably like, it's the weirdest scene in the film. So in terms of like narrative, it actually, like, it's the scene that kind of confuses people the most. People are like, what's going on right now? But in terms of approach and control, it's probably the most well put together, well constructed scene in the entire film, in terms of like the edit, the shot decisions, blocking, performance. It's this really weird long monologue, and it somehow works. And we had none of those shots, none of that blocking, like none of it before we got there, before we actually entered that space. And yet it came together. And that 45 minutes was so much fun, because it was like it's almost like that, like ego death, right? It was like my power had been taken away from me. But instead of me feeling like I needed that to be like a good director or anything, it actually like liberated me, because it actually opened me up to an optimism in my own imagination. And also, like, it opened up, freedom for my team, my DP. She was now suddenly like, yeah, okay, cool. Like, anything that we think of doing right now is on the table. Like, there's no bad ideas right now, because we need ideas. And that level of like freedom, removed from the pressure of like, what are we supposed to be doing, wound up like creating like a really well married scene in the end, in a way that like we didn't have it on paper, And so it's really interesting. Like, I've had enough of those experiences now where it's almost becoming part of my process to go, okay, I can't help but want to control everything, but I do have little pockets where I go, and it's usually to do with, like you're saying, like my team, like the actors are a big part. I'll go, if something's not working, I'll be like, okay, guys, try something. Surprise me, And I'm not afraid, because it's like, well, I can still try and get what I need, but what's the worst that's going to happen? I don't use it. And so I kind of will be like, okay, just do. And same thing with the DP. Like, we had a scene in Final Gift where we lost the location the day before we were supposed to shoot it, or 2 days before. And it was so hard to like work out who was going to have time. Like, even the producers, like, when are the producers going to have time to work out how to get another location? There's so much else to do. And on the last day, we're like, we don't know how, but on the last day, we'll figure it out. And on the last day, we're shooting in this like residential area in a house, and we somehow have to make the scene that's shot in a hospital. And so we go, was it the last thing we shot? I think it was maybe the last thing we shot. And we were like, okay, we'll push it to the end of the day so we have time to figure it out. And we got to the end of the day, and I'd thought about it. We'd had conversations in our breaks during the day, like, okay, where are we going to shoot the scene? Like, we're going to shoot in this bedroom. Can we make this bedroom look like a doctor's office? And we thought about it, and we kind of thought we could, but And at the end, when we got to actually shooting the scene, you know, the crew's already taken like gear up, lights and everything upstairs to try and make this bedroom look like a doctor's office. And I'm realizing I don't buy it. I don't think it's going to work. I don't think it's going to look. It's going to look kind of interesting, but it's not. I don't think it's going to be too distracting. And I brought everyone that wasn't panicking. There were some people that were panicking. I was like, okay, you can't be in the room because you're not. I was just like, you know, yeah. My production designer came in, or our set dresser came in, because she was like super level-headed with stuff like that. She never panicked. And I just closed the most like competent. Everyone's competent, but like just the most like stone cold people stayed in that room. And we locked ourselves in the kitchen. I was like, guys, I haven't got a clue what to do. I'm not going to act like I've got the plan. I don't know what to do. I don't know. I don't think it's going to work upstairs though, so we're not doing that. Where can we do it? And then, like everyone was like, I was like, yeah, no, it's cool. Look, this is it. Like, we're filmmakers. Like, let's think of fucking something to do here. Like, what can we do? Like, don't panic about it. Like, we're going to shoot something. So let's just calm down. What can we do? And well, we obviously got it in the end. My first came back to this idea of shooting this scene in the kitchen, and we kind of just shot it in a particular angle and dressed it in a certain way. But even that scene, it's like, that scene works just as good as it would have had we shot it at the location we were supposed to. It's almost like we should have just we saved ourselves the effort of like having a distracting schedule and having to travel halfway across the city. We could have shot it at the house the whole time. You know, it worked just as well. But it's almost like it worked better coming from that. You don't want to be in that position, obviously. It's a pretty stressful situation to be in. But it was cool seeing everyone come away from like the panic and then actually go and step into this like creative freedom and realize that that's what it actually was. It was creative freedom. It wasn't like it didn't have to be such a reactive thing. It didn't have to be something that was like, oh, this is like a substitute. It didn't have to be that at all. It actually could be incredibly creatively liberating. You could be like for the set dresser, that was like in its simplest form her best work, because she really turned nothing into something, you know, out of just like what had been prepared for her by the production designer who wasn't actually on set during the time. So I've kind of learnt now, and when your team does that, it's remarkable. It's such a nice feeling to see them happy with the scene in the end. And they're like, oh, yeah, it worked. And it's like, yeah, because you guys are fucking great. Do you know what I mean? And it's so cool to see something that they weren't sure they could pull off, for them to, because as the director, they're always like, okay, worst comes to worst, this director's gonna like know what to do. But when they realize that, you know, they already know how important they are, but when a moment like that where it's like really like, no guys, you are saving the day right now with your creativity, and they open up into that and they realize like their ideas are gonna save the day, that's incredibly empowering. It's nice. Again, I don't ask for those moments, but I've had enough of them, and every single time it's the same thing. But regardless of the type of crew I'm working with, it always kind of, it brings the crew together a little bit, and you see people have that like very self-affirming experience to have on a film set when you have to like kind of come up with it there. So I don't wish that on people, but God, it's interesting. This is a really weird like kind of right pan. Your t-shirts. So you've got this whole thing going on with your t-shirts that is like really the kind of first thing I wanted to talk to you about. I'm obsessed with artists that have these kind of little things, right?
Yeah.
Nicholas Winding Refn's one of my favorite directors, Danish director. He directs all of his films with a power blanket. It's a blanket wrapped around his belly to like keep in his chi and his good positive energies. And everyone's like, what? He directs with this blanket.
Love it. Directors are so weird.
Weird.
I love us. I love us.
And you've got this thing going on, which is, I hope it doesn't end. I hope it gets more exaggerated over your career, where you've got like this series of black tees with captions on them.
Yeah.
You've got like the champ is here.
Yeah.
You've got what is it?
The underdog is on top.
The underdog is on top. You've got, I swear.
We
talk me through.
gonna be all right.
We gonna be all right. That's what I wanted.
Yeah.
How did that start? Do you make them? Is there someone who sorts you out? Like, what's the deal? This is really random thing, because I didn't know that about you at the time, and now I've seen it. Oh, I'm like, she always wears t-shirts like this. What the hell's going on here? Talk to me about that for a second.
I know, it's so funny. Well, I feel like it's really funny that you bring up. What did you say that director's name was? The Power Blanket one?
Nicholas Winding Refn.
Yeah. So I don't really have a thing on set yet, but I'm sure on my next film I definitely will have a thing. But yeah, I had done a festival run before, and it was always like a thing, like what to wear, like, it was just I'm not really like a fashion person. Okay. Like, yeah, I like a good outfit, every once in a while, but I just don't have that, some people care about that stuff, and I'm not really good at that. So I was like, oh God, like another festival run. Like, am I going to have to get like a series of new outfits for this? And I was like, you know what? Why don't I just create some shirts that have messages on them? Because if I'm literally speaking to people, that's basically what you're doing at festivals. It's like my job to represent the film. And, I knew we were going to do press and like be on TV, be in the news, be wherever. I might as well have what I'm wearing also be a statement, because, at first it was honestly just a lack of like wanting to plan outfits and being like, okay, we're going to how many festivals in a row? Like, I don't have any nice clothes. Like, that was literally it. And then I was like, you know what? I'm just going to create a series of shirts. And I was kind of inspired by Andre 3000. Like, he did a whole tour where he wore black jumpsuits with white sayings on them. And one of the sayings and they weren't all like mine are specifically about myself and about Pick. His are kind of clearly like his thoughts. So they weren't all like connected. Like, one, for example, that I saw, that was the one that was my main inspo, was he had one that said, across all nations, darker people suffer most. Why? And then he had one that was like, everything is temporary. Like, there was kind of like a different range of the themes, whereas my range of themes is kind of just like Black power, basically. And they're all basically inspired by songs that I liked and listened to while making Pick. And I have kind of like a pump up being a filmmaker type playlist of pump up songs that I listen to, and I'm just like, this fucking industry, like, because it's never like me creating that brings me down in any way. It's the reality sometimes of the industry that, like, sometimes I get stressed out because I read a sad statistic or I watch a racist film and I'm like, how is this still getting into the biggest festival in the world? Shout out to Tiff for that one. But yeah, no shade, but shade. I saw a really racist film there this year. But anyways, or last year. But yeah, they're all kind of going back to music. Like, music is like, it's so connected to me being a filmmaker, because I just listen to music so much, to not even for inspiration. I'm not listening to a song being like, oh, this song made me whatever, but music makes me feel like I can do things sometimes. Like, The Underdogs on Top, going back to me being 11, that was my Hate It or Love It by 50 Cent in the Game, was my favorite song when I was 11 years old. Like, this Hate It or Love It, The Underdogs on Top, I'm gonna shine, homie, till my heart stops. And as a kid, I was like, yo, that's me. I'm gonna always shine. I'm gonna be the best. I'm the underdog. I always rooted for the underdog. I mean, when I was a kid, I didn't see myself as an underdog, okay? I just saw myself as a kid that was living life, and I didn't realize in many ways I was an underdog. But now, that song has literally stayed with me for how many years, and it really epitomized, like, it's been the song that I listen to so much when I think about succeeding in film, because I don't see myself as an underdog, because I know I'm talented, but in many ways I have also seen myself so much as an underdog. So the shirts really like are connected to songs that helped me get through making Pick, and are still kind of helping me get through being in film. But it was just something that was so fun, because like, there's always press, there's always social media that like is connected to the film, and I knew that people were going to see the shirts, and I always like to make a statement however I can. So, it's kind of like I went from being like, I'm an introvert. I'm a person who kind of went from being like the person who never talked to people in university. Like, I was very to myself, which is weird, because when I was a kid, I was like the leader, like kind of leading the pack. And then I went to school and I was like kind of in a place where I wasn't the leader anymore. Like I feel like I've been in certain situations where I've been easily intimidated based on my own insecurities more than anybody doing anything. And that was kind of me in university. And so I was not the type of person that was going to be making a statement, showing up with an afro or like blonde or pink braids. You know, I was kind of like, let me just blend in and let me just do my thing. And then I left school and I went through my emancipation and I cut off all my hair and I was like, you know what? If I'm going to fucking stand out in every goddamn film room I'm in or every festival, then people should remember me for what I had to say, not just for what I looked like. And, you know, what I have to say is now also on my shirt. So if you're only going to think about my appearance, then look at my hair, look at my afro, look at my braids, and read what's on my shirt. And so much of my work is connected to appearances. So it just kind of made sense to me that I might as well just like, you know, show up plain Jane in like a black t-shirt with a statement on it and just have a statement. And even like the Canadian Screen Awards, it got canceled. There's no kind of plan yet for when it's going to happen, but I was already thinking of like, how am I going to make a statement, you know, with what I wear? Because I just think it's cool. Like, I think it's cool when it's coming from a place of like authenticity. Like, these are not things that I like went and searched to find. Like, all of these songs that I was quoting were so connected to me making the film. And then people just liked them because everything on those shirts is relatable. And it also kind of showed like my confidence, which is like a newfound confidence in just like being myself and just wearing a shirt that says The Chosen One.
The champ is here. Literally made my day. I was like, yeah, you have all kinds of levels of temerity to just rock around at a film festival with a shot. Like, the champ is here. I was like, damn it, someone beat me to it. This is amazing.
Yeah, well, and that's a Muhammad Ali quote, you know, and I very much believe in the law of attraction, and I very much believe in speaking your beliefs into reality. And people know this because all the time I'm always saying like, you know, in 10 years when I'm at the Oscars, or I'm always saying to my friends who I also think are talented, I'm just like, yeah, I'll see you at the Oscars. And people think I'm joking. I'm not joking. And I always say, you know, like whenever I kind of talk about something that's been hard, I'm like, yeah, it'll all be in the Oprah interview. It'll be in the Oprah special. And everyone's just like, ha 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 ha. And I just like, you guys are laughing because you think I'm joking. But I believe, like, you know, I believe so much in everything that you have now was once something you only imagined you could do. Even something as simple as I made Pick. That was something that was just in my imagination. And now it's a finished film that people like. And, you know, I have a vision board. I have daily affirmations that I say of things I'm trying to speak into my world. And don't get me wrong, it's not like I don't talk shit about myself sometimes or like have negative feelings and negative thoughts. Like, I'm not perfect, but I definitely believe in tricking your subconscious to believing that you're the best and you're the greatest. And, you know, I have to tell myself that, so I have to wear a shirt as a reminder, but I do believe it. I do believe that, you know, I don't believe I'm better than everybody else, but I believe I'm going to be the best person that I can be.
Yeah.
And I believe that, you know, when Muhammad Ali was out there saying he was the greatest and then he was, how did that happen? You know, he had to believe it. And that's why I was like, well, I'm going to have these powerful Black people and have their quotes on my shirts and live like, I'm going to live in the ways that they've lived, where they've believed these things to be true about themselves. And I'm going to listen to these songs until this is in my head so much that I really do believe it about myself. And, you know, I don't know. I'm just also like, it's just fun. It's also just fun. Yeah, like I kind of gave you like, the explanation as to why.
I knew it came from somewhere
because it's like
awesome.
a
That's why I had to
starter
ask.
too.
I knew it came from somewhere
Yeah,
super
I'm
dope,
not
so
good at. I'm really not good at doing short answers for things.
No, but that's why I liked, because I knew something that it's like you're such a deliberate person.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, I need to know the story behind the t-shirts, because I did get to speak to you about it because I didn't know it was a friggin' thing. I was like, oh, she's wearing a t-shirt to champion.
I know. Oh, and I did get them made. I got them made at like a t-shirt place.
Is it the same place
not
every
all
time?
at once. Yeah, and it wasn't like all at once or anything. I just kind of went in because I let the shirts choose me. Like
Mhm.
I was like, okay, champ is here was just an obvious choice. And then later I was like, oh yeah, the underdog's on top. Like, and so I actually haven't done any new ones because nothing's really come to me yet as what will be the next shirt. But yeah, I had them made at like a t-shirt place.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Here's the thing: would you
Thanks.
wear? Because this is a tricky one, because of the prestige of it. Would you wear one, say Cannes or the Oscars? Would you wear one, or would you go, okay, I'll abide to the status quo and do the dress up? How would you? How would
Well, that was what I was kind of trying to decide for the Screen Awards
you, yeah.
because it is like a red carpet event. And I hadn't quite decided, but I think I was going to make more of a statement with my hair. And I was going to do something where it was going to be some sort of headpiece that maybe had a statement.
Nice.
That's where I was more leaning towards
Nice.
that. Yeah, because here's the thing. I also did really want to just dress up and wear a fun gown.
Yeah, of course.
And I was looking forward to that aspect of it. But I still wanted to make a statement. So I was trying to figure out how, and I was thinking it was going to be something to do with my hair. And I was going to style my natural hair in a certain way, but have some sort of headband or headpiece that was a statement. That's where I was like leaning towards. Or, I mean, I was already planning a very statement filled speech, but I did want to look a certain way. And it is also connected to this thing where people always like, I am still very much like the only Black woman in a lot of rooms. And that's cool and whatever. It can feel really isolating, but it also makes me memorable in a different way. And, you know, I it would be cool if people's impression of me, if they don't meet me, but they can see that, just let's say they just saw me from afar wearing my statement shirt, and then automatically there's something that they already know and feel about me that is kind of something positive. Like, oh, here's a confident person who, if they know what the reference is, like, is a fan of other Black influential people. And if that's all they know about me and they don't get to meet me, then that's great, because that's
Mm.
exactly what I'm trying to accomplish with my work. I'm trying to make a statement with my work. It's work that I think is usually has a very bold message. And, I maybe not necessarily be like the most like, well, it depends. It depends on the day. Like, I am still a person in some rooms. I do kind of go to the back. Like, if they're like somebody volunteered to lead a speech or something, I'm not about to do that. I feel very like, for example, when we had that like Urban World director's lunch and you just had to go up and introduce yourself, I hate doing that type of thing. That
Yeah,
scares the shit out of me.
it's pretty
I
uncomfortable.
don't like I don't like doing that type of stuff. But if it's something where, like a speech and an award show, I would have planned that. Like, my life is very much like my films. Like, I don't like to wing things. I like to be deliberate because I like to be careful in what I'm saying, and because I want everything I say to have like an impact. I want it to have meaning, that if I was to make a speech or do a presentation or something, I'm prepared. Like, I've planned what I'm going to say because I want to say the best possible thing. And that can sometimes be difficult because, then I'm overthinking things at times. But that is kind of where I'm hoping to go with this film and this new direction of like being in a situation where I can't control everything, and kind of going back to what you were saying, like letting my creativity and imagination and collaboration also happen when we're on the day, because we can't always plan everything so much when we have these other factors that we don't know. Like, obviously we're going to have a plan, but I want to trust in my ability to create things on the day and just be. And that's why like these types of talks like are great, because like I wouldn't plan anything for a talk because, I'm just being myself and I'm just talking. But if I know I'm saying a speech in front of the entire Canadian film industry, I'm definitely going to say something about racism in Canada. Like, if you're going to remember me, you're going to remember, and even if you haven't seen my film, you're going to remember that speech. Oh, who was that girl that made that really like bold speech to a room of white people, and she had like, Oh, one of the statement things I was actually considering was I was going to maybe wear something like my outfit was going to be inspired by some sort of like, I don't know, like African printed type of vibe, but I couldn't really, that was kind of too forced for me. I was like, I'm trying too hard. Like I would never wear this like necessarily. So
Yeah.
it kind of felt too forced. And
Yeah.
that's why I was like, I need it to come organically or like I'm kind of just like, if I would never wear this, like it's just too forced and I'm not trying to be gimmicky. I am really trying to do something that, is authentic to me, not just trying to be like, I'm the black person, like everybody pay attention to me because I look different.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of, anyways, that's how I didn't really finish fleshing it out, but especially when I have money and I'm going to the Oscars, are you kidding me? Like I'm going to have a whole dress designed that has a statement or something. But now in my humble place, I would definitely still follow the dress code, but there'll be a statement that's going to get made for sure.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to that. It's good. It's interesting that you say that about like manifestation, and me and a brother of mine, Roger, who illuminate what we do with these podcasts is actually like it's like his company, and amazing actor, and we have this thing. I don't think we see it as like manifesting it. We're just like, where else is it going to go but this moment? And we always thought
Yeah.
of this moment where we're kind of sat either on some sort of like restaurant terrace or some sort of deck, and where we're at Cannes and we're looking at our mums, and they're eating and they're on their own table and they're just like chatting away, and people are just like taking amazing care of them, like just like taking the best care of them, and we're literally just sat there watching them at closest. It's just like, done, mission accomplished, sort of thing, and that's our big thing, is like,
Love
regardless
it.
of what happens at Cannes, it's like that moment of like, okay, we made the work that got us here to have that moment where they can just chill, and they're getting like top of the range hospitality. They've just been well looked after, and they're just in their element. And just to watch them objectively and be like, and we've talked about that moment so many times, to the point where it's like, it's not something. It's not even like I say, it's not even, doesn't feel like I'm trying to manifest it. It's like you couldn't stop that from happening if you tried. Like, there's no way me and that guy won't have that moment. So it's I completely resonate with that when you're like, no, I'm not saying it because I'm saying it. I'm like, I already see the steps to that lead to that moment, because they're all that's the next step I'm taking. That's the next step I'm taking. Amazing. I'm gonna hit you with it. So I always like wrap up on this like trivia thing. I'm starting to. So I'm trying to think.
I just want to say, I'll see you at Cannes. I'll see you at Cannes. And I also fully
100%.
believe that moment, when you said the moment, I could already see the moment in my head, like when you explained it. So it's so strong, like the visual that you have of it, that I fully agree. Like there's no way it won't happen.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, 100%. I'll see you at Cannes. I'll see you at a bunch of these things. I'll always be like, where's the t-shirt? I'll be that annoying person that like you're getting interviewed, and I'm always gonna be that guy that's like,
Aww.
what's the t-shirt? Okay, sorry guys.
Well, you're like one of the like true earliest believers, so I really do love that. Because like we need on this journey, we just need that person that, like, obviously I believe in myself, but I always remember somebody saying something positive to me in the moments where I'm like, oh God, like we need these moments to keep us from giving up
For sure.
And the only reason why I believe so much in this future is because I know I won't give up until I get to that Oprah interview, so it's like nobody can tell me the Oprah interview is not happening, because I'm like, well, I'm going to keep making work until I reach the level of like success that has me to be on Oprah, whether it's in 10 years or 20 or 50. So, or 5 or 1,
or like
maybe
one. Or your next short film blows up
know.
even more, because if you do what obviously you've already done again, it's like, Jesus Christ. But
thank
but
you.
also that's like kind of why we're doing these podcasts, right? Is we had this discussion about it where we were like, we looked at our network of like close friends, but also like filmmakers who we've met either through like festivals or whatever, just like work that connects you to each other. And we realized that amongst the ones that we'd developed really good relationships with, or had like strong rapport with, even if you'd only met a few times, like us in that instance, it was like we sat down and we're like, we are literally tight with all of the next guys and girls, like all of the next people, all of the next ones that these young ones like raving over, the gods of the next generation. We looked around and we were like, if we were really honest about it, like these are all of them. These are all of the next players, right?
Yeah.
And so we were like, it's almost like it's part like I love getting in conversations with filmmakers like you, because there's just like a wealth of knowledge there and wisdoms and like just like early genius that more people are yet to be exposed to. And so like it's great to just from this point get to have these kind of conversations with you. But then also it's like kind of selfish, because it's like there's a compounding effect of this podcast in itself, where it's like I'm going to have this like lineage of conversations with amazing filmmakers that all gone to do great things. And then you go back and they're all here. You know, we had them all in like a nest.
Yeah.
There's a compounding effect to that in itself. People. Yeah. I'm like, look, we had all the G's. We had them all, right? Like they're all on this podcast. Go back. So it was like,
it'll be in the Wikipedia page.
Right. You know, it'd be like, this is
that like these two people knew each other and and because it's always interesting when you read some celebrities like these two people like knew each other from this.
Yeah, you didn't know they go way back.
All came up together.
Yeah, and that's part of the thing. It's like that creates traction in itself. Where there's a scene, you see the music industry is really smart and concise about that. Where it's like, you know, you're talented, but do you fit in a scene? You know, are you associated with a group of other artists? That it's like if someone says one name, then it goes like, you know, if you say Mac Miller, then you're gonna say Thundercat. And if you say Thundercat, you're gonna say Flying Lotus. You're gonna say Kendrick, and you know, and so that's a really important dynamic too. And it's like if there's a scene, like this is what I love about Le Nouvelle Vague and French New Wave is like they deliberately created a scene, and that's why they named it.
Yeah.
And because they knew the power of that, they were like, okay, cool. Look, we're gonna not all gonna make the same films, but there's a kind of a group of principles that we have that unite us, and then we're gonna go make our films, but we're gonna name what we're doing. And it's a kind of a similar thing of like what's happened as a Luminary, where we're just like, okay, cool. Like there's all of the people that we want to have on the podcast have like one thing in common. They all have made the most bomb short films, and they are all like, we are one. There's no question of their trajectory. No question of their trajectory. So people look back, even I think even in like a year's time, people look back and be like, oh man, that's mad that you guys had all of these guys there. And I'm like, well, yeah, because then it suddenly creates that, and also you hope that they become aware of each other, so that like when people do bump into each other, it's like, oh yeah, I know that you know so and so, and that's the beauty. I think there needs to be that interconnectivity in up and coming artists, so that it's like, you know, you go to that festival and you're on that carpet alone, and then you're like, oh snap, you know. So I'm hoping that we can play a part in that, culturally speaking. That's the aim anyway, is to do
love
that.
It.
Okay, so trivia time. I'm trying to work out if I should ask you the same one that I always ask, because I just like that question. Yeah, I will. We'll keep it consistent. In the spirit of COVID-19, and the isolation situation, so they're sending. It gets really bad, and they send everyone to an island. They're like, you have to leave, and everyone's going to get their own island. You can choose where the island is, what kind of climate, blah blah blah. But the only thing you can take is a solar-powered projector and screen and 3 movies. And they're the last 3 films you're ever going to see for the rest of your life.
Oh God.
Go.
It's so. Oh wow, that's such a tough question.
Yeah, it's a great question.
Okay, hold on. Okay, the 2 are already in my mind, but I'm like, I need a comedy too.
Everyone rationales it in this way.
Yeah, because I'm like, I need like one of each genre. So first, I will just say my favorite movie, which is Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. Oh,
Michelle Gondry, amazing.
Yes, I love that film. And the reason why it's like, I mean, obviously it's just an amazing, beautiful film, but it's like one of the first films I watched that had like a deliberate style. And before I kind of started thinking of myself as like a style director, which I definitely consider myself to be, like I'm not, you know, there are a lot of films where you just kind of are paying attention to the story and you're invested, but I'm really into style. And so that was before I started going to festivals, watching like very style heavy films and like auteur type of films, you know, and this film kind of slipped into like what I happened to be watching before I had this knowledge of all these other amazing films that were out there. And I was like, amazing. Like, not only is it like really cool, the story, and to me now, if like there's so many spiritual things I could go into about like what's happening into the film, but just quite simply like a love story with this like very cool style, and um just I love the like fragmented like multiple timelines, and just the way that he did certain things of like showing people's kind of like Freudian type of like inner thoughts and feelings. And it's just a really cool film. I just really love it, and it's my favorite film, and it probably always will be because I've seen it for a long time. So it's kind of hard for other films to get back into like my all time, because most of the films I've really liked I've seen more recently, so they're not like as highly regarded. But only films, not shows.
Only films.
Just
Oh.
okay.
See, no one's
No,
put
no,
that.
no, no. Shows is gonna make it too much choices.
Yeah,
That's
I
gonna
think
be
it
too
could
much
get
choice.
more
Okay,
complicated. Yeah.
so that one for sure. Um, I need like I have another film that okay, I'm just gonna say it because I really love it, and it is also one of my favorite films. It's called Once. Have you seen Once?
I've heard of ones. I haven't seen it though.
Okay, so the reason I'll pick that film is because it's a music film, and I absolutely love the music. And I was actually introduced to the lead actor, who's more of a musician, but he happened to act in this film. I was introduced to his music through this film, and it's a beautiful film. Oh my God, who's the director? John Carney. John Carney. And so I fell in love with this film because I love Ireland, and my like grandfather is from Northern Ireland, and I always had this like inner feeling of like connection to Irish people, and it kind of like manifested in my reality so many times by like I always happen to be like very connected to somebody that's Irish all of a sudden out of nowhere, and I'd be like, this is just so true. Or I'd like fall for some sort of Irish musician or whatever. And this movie is like also a beautiful movie about connection. I'll say connection and not love. Like, it's a beautiful movie about connection and connecting over music. And that is a big thing for me because like music is such an important part of my life and connecting with people. And the film is like just a very simple, beautiful movie about coming together over music. And if I don't get to bring music to this island, then I'm going to need this film because I could just listen to the music in the movie. And then lastly, oh my God, I need a comedy, but like no comedies of recent years are like coming into my mind that I'm I'm just trying to think of like what's a movie I will go back to that's a comedy that I still really like, but what are yours?
Oh no, because I mean, I've got. I think I've got to keep switching them up because otherwise I just say the same thing every time.
Okay.
So
Okay, well, I'm still thinking.
to help you with your last one, yeah, I got prepared that we could get asked this a lot. Okay, so I get to keep. That's great. I get to keep change my answer. No, I can't. I said
Just tell me
Drive.
what you said
I
before.
said
Okay.
Drive
Yeah.
because Nicholas winning Refn, Ryan Gosling, Carey Mulligan, Oscar Isaac, like everything about that film.
Mhm.
I said Before Sunrise.
I haven't
With Shane
seen
Tate.
that.
Oh wow, yeah, check that film out. Just because
Okay.
that's
The Full Sunrise?
Before Sunrise. Yeah, it's a trilogy.
Before Sunrise.
Yeah.
You know, I actually tried to watch that movie and I turned it off after 20 minutes. So I'm going to give it another chance.
No, I get why. I get that.
And I know, I'm like,
I love
I need to
dialogue
commit the
films.
time because I know it's the type of film that you have to watch the whole movie.
Yeah,
But I
definitely.
was watching it on the plane too on my computer, and I was like, I need a different vibe than this.
Yeah,
But I have it on my computer, so like
yeah.
I'm
Please watch
going
it.
to watch it. I'm gonna give it another chance. I
It
just
doesn't.
kind of
It
like
doesn't go
immediately,
anywhere. To be fair, it's literally just like if you went out and met someone on holiday and
yeah.
then spent like
Which I have though.
that's the
Yeah,
thing.
so I
Yeah,
can
you tap into
resonate
that.
with
It takes a
it.
moment to realize that that's kind of like you do
Yeah.
need it to be in a particular vibe to actually get that or to enjoy that film. I think, but I'd have that if I was on an island. And
Okay.
I can't remember what my third choice was. So I'm just going to switch it up to see how compare them over time. So my third choice. I actually think I said Back to the Future.
Ooh,
That's
good
like one of my
choice.
old childhood like films. I've probably seen that film more times than any film.
That's a really good
I
choice.
think those are the two. But see, I went between that and Blue is the Warmest Color as well.
Mm.
Any
Hmm.
films that are gonna make me feel like I can experience a relationship,
Yeah.
films like Blue Valentine, Blue is the Warmest Color, Her, even Moonlight. Like any film that I think has like a really actually any film that makes me feel like it kind of gets me delved into like sexuality or relationships. You need somewhere to put that energy, right?
Yeah.
God. So yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know if that helps you get to your final.
No, but um no, because you don't have a comedy in there. I need a comedy that I can just like not think about and not think about the filmmaking and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I guess at this point I'm not making movies since whatever, but I do like to just watch a movie that
Mm.
I don't think about the filmmaking aspects. I'm just laughing and just like crying and totally recognizing how they made that happen, kind of like I was saying before, like, oh, there's a sad song, now I'm supposed to feel this way, but I do feel this way, so great job. I'm thinking of definitely an Adam Sandler comedy, probably.
Yeah. I was just, I was like,
Totally.
if I had to have a comedy, it'd be Anger Management with Jack
Yeah,
Nicholson and
I feel like mine would be,
that's
I don't
amazing.
know, because I don't
Yes,
know how. Wait,
he's
what were you gonna
amazing.
say?
And I'm just so
I love
happy
Adam
because
Sandler.
I think Adam
Yeah,
Sandler is honestly just legendary. He's legendary.
I love Adam Sandler. I feel like for me, it would probably be either 50 First Dates or The Wedding Singer.
Nice. Oh, nice.
Um, because those are just like the classic, funny Adam Sandler movies.
Yeah.
And in some ways, I could see how maybe if I rewatch them, maybe like more recently, they probably didn't age that well. But I just love Adam Sandler, and probably also Big Daddy is
All
one
of
of
those,
the
all
like,
of those. Happy
yeah, just
Gilmore,
every Adam
Big
Sandler.
Daddy, Anger
Yeah,
Management. First Date's
totally.
actually like that's a tough film to watch actually.
Yeah, but it's still funny and
It's hilarious.
sweet.
Yeah.
But I mean, it is pretty creepy in but yeah, we know, blah blah blah. But you know,
Yeah.
like
I
I
love Adam
acknowledge there's
Sandler.
ways that these obviously old Adam Sandler movies have not aged well, but I
I
just
love
love
them.
Adam Sandler's weird like acting style where he just plays the same type of like funny, shy weirdo. And
Yeah.
I just grew up watching like so many Adam Sandler movies that I just liked so much that if I could only have like one comedy, like, well, I mean, I already picked those other two movies for other reasons, but if I were to pick a comedy, it would be probably, I'm just going to go with, I'll just say The Wedding Singer then. But no, I'm going to do Big Daddy. I'm going to do Big Daddy because, you know, the other movies I have are like love movies, and this is just like a really weird but funny movie about him like connecting to a kid, and it's just cute. But again, I haven't watched it recently, but I just remember watching that movie so many times because it was just funny. It was just
It will still
funny.
be.
So yeah,
Even films
so
age
that's my
badly,
last.
sometimes I like that because I'm like,
Yeah.
it encapsulates it in history where you're like,
Yeah. Like I was watching Hitchcock Vertigo, and like there's so many like sexist things that happen in it, but you just laugh
yeah,
because you're like, well, they didn't fucking know any better, but like
yeah,
it's still a good movie. But like I'm also aware that like I can watch things and also critique them. You know what I mean? Like I can watch it and be like, I will. That being said, I won't watch things if somebody comes out as an abuser. I won't watch their shit. I'm just like, you're
yeah.
out.
Okay,
But
that's interesting.
I can watch a dated movie. I can watch a dated movie and be like, there's some fucked up jokes in here, but I still like the movie. But I won't support artists who are fucked in real life.
Yeah,
I
see,
won't do that.
we definitely have to have this conversation another time because I got into a discussion about that where I was like, I can't decompartmentalize the art and the person because I'm biased because my process, if you're seeing a film or anything that I create, there's me in there, right? It's like, even
Of
if it's just on a
course,
level of like
you.
interest levels, like I've gone to tell a story about something I have no experience with. because my experiences have led me to be interested about that, right? And that's like a unique experience to me, because otherwise, that's like the way that you didn't realize you were interested, which is why you didn't make a film about that. That's what separates us, right? Is my experiences had led to me being interested in that. So it's still very telling of me, right? And so I can't decompartmentalize, and I think it's dangerous too, because you're trying to make this argument that the artist has created work that wasn't channeled from the energies that create that element of their personality, and that's complete BS in my opinion. Like, if someone was like an iconic painter and they molested children, I promise you that sexual desire in them, in some regard, would have been impressionable on their artistry completely. And so it's like, one, I don't want to be impressionable by energies that were created by someone in that psychology or in that mindset or in, with those belief systems, because I personally believe that art is very impressionable on us, even if you don't realize it. Like, think about how many things you put in your film that people don't know, and it has an effect on them. They don't know. Like, you put a color scheme in the film and no one even realized there was a color scheme, and it's like, well, how the fuck do you think I made you feel that way? It's not as obvious as it will seem. There's like these finite details that all play their role. And so if I could be very ill-intentioned in why I'm designing aspects of the film to make you feel a certain way, and you wouldn't be aware. So I don't want to, it's like Disney. Like, we all get questionable about, like, why was Disney? Why did someone sit there in a room and go, I'm going to throw titties in this shot? When they knew like 5-year-olds are going to watch it. It was like, why did you make that decision?
I know, yeah.
And so you can't decompartmentalize the art and the artist in it. Otherwise, they wouldn't both comprise of the same work. So I'm with you on that, but not everyone agrees. A lot of people are like,
I know.
Oh well, you got to decompartmentalize. But I'm like, especially if you are an artist, how do you buy that argument? Because you know how much of yourself is in those films. You know how much of you is in that work, and it's like, so how can someone who has really questionable moralities, how can you excuse the work? Because the work that's like saying, well, it was worth it for the work. No, it really wasn't. No. There's enough good artists. We can lose amazing artists. We can lose them. I'd rather have, like, human beings that contribute to our growth in a positive way than great artists. Like art plays an important role, but like, ultimately the individual is what drives society forward. So I think it's dangerous to not, because that's how you'll get people like, I don't know if you've ever seen The Following. I won't spend too much time on this, but there's a series called The Following, which is okay. It kind of gets a bit repetitive, but the concept's really interesting. It like follows this detective trying to basically hunt down the serial killer, and the serial killer has this really kind of like Mansonic kind of like he built this cult around and he has a really artistic ideology around why he murders people. It's like the ultimate art form sort of thing, and it's really interesting, like the way they break it down in the series. I think the series could have been like better than it was, but I do think there's some really, really nice, interesting ideas in there, and that character has a lot of potential that maybe isn't fully fleshed out, but his ideologies are super interesting. He really sees murder as like this ultimate art form of like, to take someone's life and like the honor that is, and like it's creepily like fair play, man. And so now if that guy goes on to being like an amazing pianist and make all these amazing symphonies and it's like, and now I'm listening to that music and I'm like, I cannot be concerned. I cannot not be concerned that music is somehow feeding me the, I guess, like melodic intentions of a serial killer. How can I? Like,
well, I think the problem is that, well, there's a lot of problems, but people, like, now that we're in this age of people actually being held accountable for their actions and people's like kind of secret negative like backstories, and certain directors that come out, oh, they were abusive to the team, on the set. People have, before it was just like you would go to the press and that was your only way of kind of explaining this was your experience, and that was unlikely for somebody to do, whereas now everybody can share, I had this experience with this person and they were abusive, this person abused me, this person is like this. Like we have so much more information now about artists that there could be an artist that I like, and then I retroactively I'm like, never mind, because now this has tainted my entire view. And I think, like, for me, it's not even like as an artist anymore. I'm just a person who has dealt with truly like traumatizing situations that I could not, as a human being, and exactly what you just said, like this energy being felt. If I'm watching a work known that I know, even if the film, you know, has nothing to do with whatever this person's known to be an abuser, it has nothing to do with abuse. It's like, so exactly what you said, like there is a layer of this film that is, you know, motivated and created by a person who is that way. So even if, you know, like for example, I used to really like David O. Russell, and I really used to like the film I Heart Huckabees. And then I heard about how abusive he is to people on set. And I watched a video of like him like screaming at people on the set of I Heart Huckabees and like literally having a temper tantrum and like throwing stuff. And I was like, I can't watch this movie again. Like, and it was one of my favorite movies. And it's like, even though there is no abuse in the movie, I literally watched the behind the scenes video of this guy being so abusive that now every time I watch that movie, that energy is connected to it, knowing that so many people were under this guy's like tyrannical, like powerful, whatever, like thing. And it's crazy because, you know, we were kind of just talking about how I'm like, oh, directors are so weird, like with the power blanket thing. And I'm like, I totally feel that guy. Like you're going to create the vibe that you work best in. And I know for my next film, I'm definitely going to create like a space that I will work best in. And it might not be the traditional filmmaking, you know, system, because it doesn't always end up with the best results, because it's kind of built around like living in the future and doing everything quickly and whatever. Anyways, it creates a certain energy around it. And watching the film again, if I were to do that, all I would be thinking about is like, this director is fucked up. And even though he made a cool film that I really liked, the way he made it is fucked. And you know, like you can, it's just, I think people just don't want to let go of their heroes and the things that they love. And for some reason they think that like genius is more important than being a good person. And it is completely possible to be a genius and also be a good person. And all of these directors that kind of had these like very abusive systems that people looked at and said, they're just the genius, so we have to just let them do their thing, is messed up. And that people kind of got away with that for so long is horrifying, because it is completely possible to have your genius and have your weird systems and weird ways of being and have them not be so connected to an ego-based need of just being, asserting yourself as like the dominant presence on the set, you know? Like it's, yeah, oh my God, just, yeah, he's somebody who I'm just like, fuck him. And there's so many directors that are like that in people. And I completely agree that I don't know why people are still making up excuses for these people and letting them be successful. And Roman Polanski literally was charged with rape and won an Oscar the next year. And he didn't get to accept his Oscar because he flew the country so he wouldn't be charged or he wouldn't be convicted. And they gave him a standing ovation at the Oscars. First of all, they gave him an Oscar, and then everybody in the fucking crowd gave him a standing ovation. That would never happen now. Are you kidding me? But this was like, I don't know, 20 years ago or something. But that happened. This fucking sick ass, disgusting director made a film. He somehow, like, after literally being like, there's no gray area as to whether he did the crime. That's why he had to flee. Like, he was gonna, if he comes back, I still think it's true that if he comes back now, he will go to jail. But he literally flew the fucking country. They gave him an Oscar anyways, and he was applauded. He got a standing ovation in his absence of not being there. And it's like, I'm just happy that at least we live in a world where now, you know, you and I and a whole group of other people are now like, no, we're not going to separate the art from the artist anymore. Like, we're not going to support these abusive, horrible people, because we're artists. Like, we know full well you can be a great artist and not treat people like shit, you know, and you can respect people and you can collaborate with people properly. And yeah, I just don't get why people don't there's so much art. You don't have to
I
like that one
know,
person. You can
I
move on.
know.
There's
There's
a
so many.
million artists out there.
I
Yeah,
feel like it's some weird
it's so
insecurity
weird.
about opportunity. I feel like it is some sort of insecurity about opportunity, right? So it's like I don't. Again, I'm theorizing, but it's like I don't like this person's amazing, right? And so it's like I don't want to get shadow banned because I stood up to this person, or I don't
Yeah,
want this group of people to not like recognize me because then how am I gonna have any opportunities? And I think I don't know because the only reason I feel like feel that way about it is it's like you're saying, there's so much talent, right? And there's so much great work that I don't think these guys do need to be put on a pedestal. I think the work gets put on a pedestal, and the character
yeah,
even more so gets put on a pedestal. And if the character gets compromised to a point where it's like, that's pretty bad, then it's not taking anything away from the work. No, but there's a greater narrative that we have to be considerate about, which is like, okay,
yeah,
we've also got to be inspiring a certain morality in the next generation, right? Like a certain
yeah,
ethos, a certain of course ideologies are going to be broad spanning, but ultimately you want people to want to be positive contributors to society. And
mhm,
so they have to grow up believing that that's a necessary part of their process. And because it also inspires discipline. Like, yeah, look, things piss you off when you're making a film, right? Like anything can happen when you're making a film, that you wake up that day and you're like, now I've got to go and make a film and like make everyone feel inspired and keep a good energy on set. When I'm not in the mood. Like this thing just happened,
yeah,
and it's like I'm not there, and I'm a bit nervous, and like other things are going wrong that people aren't aware about in the film, and I've got to shelter everyone from that. But I'm not gonna if I and I would maybe be justified in having a temper tantrum or being just in a weird mood or something, but we can't be out. We talked about this in like that Taz podcast. I said you were speaking about being outcome oriented. And I think if you're too outcome oriented, then you do anything to get there, right? Like as long as the work gets done, it doesn't matter. But I'm like, I'd rather fail the film, but the experience of making the film was fulfilling for everyone that was there, right? Like people have
yes,
memory, because at the end of the day,
yes,
it's a chunk of people's life that you've
yes,
got now forever. Like you make a film for people, even if it was a short film, it was only a few days. Like forever, you took that portion of their life, and they if you didn't write that idea, they would have spent their days doing something else in those days. So something that you imagined in your head,
yeah,
it warranted somebody else's time, a bunch of people's time to collaborate and bring this vision together. You got to respect that. It's more important than the film, and it's more important than
yeah,
what people think about the film, because
exactly.
the film wouldn't exist if those people didn't make those conscious decisions to be there with you. And so how you value that part of the process is just as important as the outcome of the film, whatever the film might be, right? As long as
Exactly.
people who showed up, who believed, because bear in mind, these people believe in you before anyone else is applauding your film. Like
Yep.
that might never happen after the film
Yep.
gets released. And yet these people, they saw a script, and yeah, maybe it was for pay or for other reasons, but ultimately they showed up because there was something that seemed worth their time. And that's the earliest validation you get, especially before you're like a big name or anything. And so it's like,
Mm-hmm.
even more so when you're a big name, those people it's a job, they want to get paid, but they're also like, cool, like I want to be part of this project and work with this person. And it's like, honor that, man. You got people's time and respect, like honor it and like return it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think the energy, it carries into the film somehow, like you watch certain
Yeah.
films, like my favorite films. I'm never surprised when I then hear about the experience of making the film, and it's like, I could feel that. I knew that was the kind of set you
Mm-hmm.
guys ran. I could feel. That's why this film is like nothing I've seen before, because you guys had a really random process where like you were like editing it whilst driving in a car. Like you can
Yeah.
tell that
Yeah.
the film came from this weird
Mm-hmm.
place where there was a certain vibe those guys had making that film. And so yeah, I think we need to get out of this habit of like letting people behave how they want because they are um, like you do have to respect someone's process. Like some people do have very particular process, and you do need to respect that. But if they're getting respected that way, they have to respect the people that are giving them that
Totally.
space to have that process. Because if no one
Yeah.
gave them that space, then how can you be like you're this great auteur or amazing filmmaker if say no one listens to your process and it was like, oh no, like we don't care that you want to have this process, then you don't get to make the film. And without everyone who shows up to make that film for you, no one gets to stand there applauding your films. The film doesn't get made. And I think
Yeah.
so. Everyone, there is a hierarchy and there is like a power hierarchy naturally, but that those higher up in it cannot forget that it's like, hey, without the bottom, one, you're not higher up, and two, if we remove the bottom, the whole thing collapses inwards.
Yeah.
And so you've got to, we can't, people who consider themselves lower in the hierarchy can't be so submissive to power just because of like the insecurity of opportunity. You know, I don't know if that's where it comes from, but I get the impression when people don't stand up for themselves, it's because they don't believe in their own authority, or they don't believe in their own value. Otherwise, you would just stand up. If a kid told you something, you would be like, what? Because you realize that you have an authoritative stance over the kid. But if someone of who you feel underneath told you something, you'd be more submissive. And so I feel like a similar thing happens in film, where people let certain people get away with things, less so because of like even fear of like the repercussions, but more so kind of selfishly. They're like, I need to keep my own trajectory like available, and I don't know if I can do that without the help of these powers that be. And we need to get out of that thinking and be like, look, if Hollywood shut its doors, if like everyone shut its doors, you have to have absolute confidence that I would go get a bunch of filmmakers, grab a camera, get some great actors, and make a banging ass film. I'd release it on the internet, and people would be like, this film's fucking sick. And that would be enough for it to, and I would get the best marketers I could to promote the film. And the film, if the film was good enough, it would still do the exact same thing that the systems and studios enable it to do, which is reach an audience that start going nuts about it. And then it's like, so what did you need them for? You don't. They just make life easier. But we got to be careful of like this power structure it's like this delusion, and it suppresses people from realizing their own power. And then that's the only thing I think that can create like true respect, like mutual respect. Is like know your place and know your role, but at the same time, like everyone has value, everyone has power, and don't put anyone too much on a pedestal, or else they can run away with it. You know, unless they're great and they're nice, then they can go up here. That's fine.
Totally. Well, just to conclude this, because I know we're like, oh, let's not make it a whole convo, and we did, but you know, it needs to be said. But I do want to add that I do think like some of the responsibility of like bringing down these like, you know, directors that do have this blast of ego in themselves shouldn't just be on people that are on like the lower, you know, part of the pyramid, but should also be on like the people that are on a more equal level, that are the collaborators, that are the producers, that are the ones paying the money. Like it's sometimes I hear about how the film got made, and it was like everybody knew from top down that we all had to tiptoe around this director's ego and attitude, and everybody hired on, including the producers, were all just working around that. And it's like, no, somebody has to sit this person down or not. They just have to not get a job. Like a producer has to just be like, we are not to this person's agent. We're not working with this director for this reason. And if they're not motivated by just the fact that there's people know that they're not a great collaborator because they can tell, because, you know, they feel that in the set, then maybe they'll be motivated by the fact that they won't get jobs. But the industry has too much and for too long rewarded people who are like this. You know, we have a million examples of like tyrannical, usually older white directors that have been this way and have gotten away with it. And there's it's a lot of people's fault. And I'm just saying, I'm not blaming the people that got hired that day, you know, and are working on the film, because they probably are looking out for themselves, but it's also like, I don't know if that director is going to respect that person's opinion. And maybe they would respect the opinion of somebody who's literally not hiring them. But and something like, I will say,
like to your point, sorry to interject, but just to your point as well, even the producers, right? Same thing. I think the same thing applies to them. Like, why you're thinking, why aren't they? Same thing. They're still like, well, I want to make sure that this director's on board and we get this film made and we make the money. And it's like, you can make the money with any other director too. You've got to actually believe that. But again, if you don't have that confidence, it's like, then you think this is the only person that can make this work. And exactly. Run away with themselves. And it's like, well, if you don't believe that, like, if it's not you, like, I think you're amazing. But if it's not you, fair enough, it'd be someone else, you know? And it's the same with a lot of positions. But my last thing I was going to say was that somebody just recently said this to me in another talk I was having, because we were talking about process. And it was just such a quote that I just really love so much, which was, like, when you finish making the film is no longer yours, it's the audience's, and all you have left is the process.
And I think that is so true.
I agree.
Like, yeah, and that just kind of sums up everything we just said. Like, if the process was horrible and the person was terrible and everything, you know, you feel that. And yeah, we can watch the film and not know. But, you know, in the end, you as a person, like if I made a film and I knew that it was kind of like anything necessary and I treated everybody like crap, for me, I don't know, maybe because I'm like a good person, I would feel that when I watch my own work. I would feel like, wow, I put everybody through shit to get this. And I wouldn't feel the same type of pride and like, you know, good that I feel while watching it. Even though the film has a good message, I would be the one with the inner knowledge that, oh yeah, but at what cost? So, you know, all we have is the process. And I do want to look back and just be like, the process was great. And that's why the film is great. But some people don't give a shit. So
I know, but that's why
I
it's
do
good.
though.
There's the Alicia K. Harrises of the world. Alicia K. Harris, I'm so grateful you came and made
Yeah.
time to
Yes.
hang
Thank
out,
you
have
for
a chat.
having
It was
me.
amazing. It was like
Thank
it's
you. It
definitely one of
was
my favorite talks.
amazing. I love talking to you. I
Yeah,
love talking to
likewise.
you.
Well,
You're
no,
great.
we'll have.
We're gonna keep in touch.
Yes, we need to keep.
Yes.
We need to do a better job
Yeah,
of keeping in
we
touch for
will.
sure. But what I want to ask you, final question, is before it ends, famous last words, Alicia K. Harris. Go.
My personal mantra, which is what you want, you are, you always were.
Ah, mic drop.